Welcome back again. It's episode 27. A warm welcome to heretics, mutants, renegades everywhere, and even the odd loyalist, and maybe a Xenos as well. Hey, Ben?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Welcome back, guys. Thanks for joining us yet again for another 2P's in the pod. Tonight, or this afternoon, or whatever time it is now we're recording this, Ben, we are going to be discussing on the hobby desk as normal. Anybody that follows us on social media won't fail to notice that Ben is cranking stuff out at such a rate. To be honest, I'm just going to start mailing him my models because it's amazing. So we'll be talking a bit about that. Then we'll go into the Galaxy of War. Now, I've just listened to a bit of the opening theme from Pacific Rim because it's got giant battling robots. And we went to the Forge World Open Day and saw slightly mini giant battling robots. So we want to talk about that. And Kill Team as well. Into the Mortal Realms. Ben's been thinking about the theme for his next project and all those Stormcasts he's been doing. So we'll have a chat about that. And if you're still awake after listening to that, we'll go out into the community. We've been to Geek Fest and we've got a couple of shout outs to do. And finally, into the wilds. Those of you yes, not so wild. So it's all about Lord of the Rings, Pelennor Fields that we saw again up at the open day. So lots of cool stuff to talk about. I've had a coffee, in case you hadn't noticed. I've even got some grapes, Ben. Trying to be healthy. Got my grapes, so that's good, isn't it? I'll eat a few of them. They always go down well alongside a tube of Pringles. So I've got me grapes. I've got me refreshments. Guys, grab some refreshments. Ben, are you refreshed?
I am refreshed. I am very refreshed. It's the morning,
well,
so
in that case,
so I've had sleep.
You've slept? Oh my goodness. Yeah. This is outrageous. So, let's go on to the hobby desk.
Hi guys, and welcome to episode 27. We've got a few extra things to talk about on the hobby desk today. We're not going to just rattle through the work we've been up to, because in doing...
It's partly due to the fact that I have heroically managed to... The only thing I have painted is the decking in my garden.
But it was very nice.
2 weeks. It does look... I'm very pleased with it. My dad helped me jet wash it off with his semi-industrial diesel electric powered pressure washer.
I don't know anyone who would buy something that was so over-spec for a task that it could cut through the wood.
It was funny when I turned it up just to see what it would do, and I cut a hole in me bloody decking.
It doesn't sound like anyone I know.
I think you do know. You know one other person other than my dad who would.
I do. I'm talking to him. Right.
So that's done.
Yeah. So let's go through like we normally do and talk about what we've done. So I've been trying to get on with a project. I had a dream to get all of the stuff that I haven't done over the last goodness knows how long finished. And that, I don't necessarily mean every kit that I've ever bought, but the core stuff, like the starters kits and those kind of stuff. I've diligently bought every single one of them and painted one of them, I think, over the years, which is ridiculous. But
which one was it that you painted?
Well, I painted the Space Marine half of Black Reach. It was the kind of starting point for my Iron Snakes.
That was a tactical squad, wasn't it?
Tactical squad, Dreadnought, and squad of Terminators.
Oh yeah.
So I did those as like the starting point of my Black Reach ones. They had a bit of conversion done to them, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, you had that awesome running Dreadnought.
No, that came later.
Oh.
the running Dreadnought. Oh dear. I'd really like to go back and do them all, which is going to take a while, but it is something I want to do in the background. So I started with, because it felt appropriate to do the current Age of Sigmar box set, or the old Age of Sigmar box set, before the Soul Wars came out. So I've been rattling through the side of the box set that I had no interest in at all, which is part of the reason why they've never been done, which was the Khorne one. But it's got me talking, or got me thinking and interacting with people about batch painting again, because a lot of the painting I've been doing over the last, well, since we started this podcast again, Dan, has been pretty focused. I've been working hard to get them all looking as nice as I could do in the time that I had, but I haven't really been batch painting. But I sat down and did the Khorne very much as I would have done store models. So very fast, using techniques that allow you to paint 20 models at a time without wanting to cry. And so that's what I've been doing. I'm really chuffed with how they've turned out, actually.
Yeah, they look great, mate.
They're kind of Khorne in my style, which is not red, but getting their red colours from Suggestion and Blood, and apart from the Blood Warriors, they had red armour, but
it's nice in a way though, because that makes the more elite Blood Warriors really stand out.
Yes, yeah, I thought so.
And the speed that you got the Blood Reavers done is excellent, especially, as many armies would want quite a lot of those.
I don't particularly want to do any more.
That's a shame, because I've sent you 40. Please don't refuse them at the door.
I was actually in Games Workshop this week, and I found myself standing looking at a box of Blood Warriors, thinking, I could do this very easy. Be very nice and easy for me to pick up and just add to my Khorne army. And I was like, no, Ben, no, what are you doing, Ben?
The corruption begins.
Yeah.
See, that's because the Chaos Gods know your weakness, which is the nice looking stuff painted at a speed that feels achievable. And they're getting to you that way.
Yeah, well, it just so happens that I found the Stormcast not much slower. Although we'll see with the Sacrosanct Chamber. But anyway, that box set is done, and I'm really chuffed with that. There's interesting stuff comes out when you paint things, isn't it? So it probably in the end, my favourite model in the whole box set is the Bloodsecrator, because it's full of character and completely different from anything Khorne that I've seen. So Khorne is always big, muscly dudes, like dressed like man of war, bondage Vikings, and they're covered in blood, and they look, they're that kind of thing. Whereas this guy is like, he's fat and he's flabby, he's muscled, but he's kind of in a sort of squat position.
Which one are you talking about?
Not Bloodsecrator.
The Bloodstoker.
Bloodstoker, yeah, the Bloodstoker. And he's got that whip, and it's
12-inch range, that whip.
Yeah,
amazing.
What? No,
his ability.
Not going to dwell on that.
No, his ability that where he whips people into a frenzy is 12-inch range, which I always think is hilarious.
Well, maybe they're just scared of him getting anywhere near them with that whip.
That's probably more likely. He probably just brandishes it in their direction.
But he
shouts, "Look at my belly!"
He looks like the sort of slavers from Lord of the Rings stuff, and like his mouth is very much like the mouth from the mouth of Sauron.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he's just really sinister and spiteful. Like I just thought he was very good. And like a nice new direction for a Khorne model. That was fun. Enjoyed that. And I've been working on the Nighthaunt from my box set, because I thought I'd do the ones that I had less interest in first from Soul Wars. So they're all
finished painting them yet?
Not all of them. I'm quite a long way through the what are they called?
Chain rasp.
The chain rasps, yeah. they're fun. Actually, they're really nice models. They're really easy to paint too. So, yeah, they won't take long at all. I'll probably get them finished this afternoon, actually, which is good.
Very good.
Lots of like tricks on that, but we're going to come back to that later because I've dug out a few things on speed painting we're going to talk about. But we were also going to have a chat about when it comes to unit painting about transfers, because we love transfers. And a couple of weeks ago, I got into a place where I thought I've got so many Space Wolves now that they can't all be Ragnar's company. So I thought, it would be quite a good idea to get Dragon Gaze and do a second company. And I was like, Games Workshop do that wicked transfer sheet with all of the, Dragon Gaze stuff on, and the Grimnar stuff, which, and I'm going to say it on record, I think it is absolutely ridiculous that Grimnar's transfers are always black when they are white. They're supposed to be white. Drives me mad. Anyway, so I went to get... Okay. So I went online to get that transfer sheet and it had sold out. Oi.
Pardon?
Yeah, I'm talking about Space Wars.
I'll go back to sleep.
Yeah, you go back to sleep and we'll talk about the grown-up stuff.
Okay.
I went online to get the transfer sheet and found they hadn't got it. And then I had a look around the site and there was a whole bunch of stuff the transfers that aren't there anymore that used to be, which is a real shame, I think. But when we were in Warhammer World a couple of weeks ago for Father's Day, they had some behind the counter, so I picked up some then. But it is a bit gutting, I think, that we seem to be losing transfers, because when it comes to painting a large army, nothing is better, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed it briefly before, and you know my feelings. I think they're ace, and I didn't used to like them at all. They used to drive me mad. I think part of the reason is probably because it's similar reason to... Do you remember when we discussed Adeptus Titanicus at Warhammer Fest, and they said they wouldn't be selling magnets?
Yes, yeah.
Well, I think Microsol and Microset, or products like them, but those ones in particular, are absolutely vital to getting good use out of a transfer, and a use that you're gonna not just get annoyed with.
Yeah.
And I said in one of our little chat groups, if you ever go into a Games Workshop or anywhere, in fact, but and someone tells you all you need is Ard Coat and Lamium Medium, they should be slapped around the face and told that they are the reason that transfers are dying, and therefore the hearts of many a hobbyist are withering up.
Yeah.
Because it's rubbish. So I think probably that's part of the reason that, transfers are quite... You have to do it right to get them...
You do have to do it right. And
properly. And also, I think you can probably... There will be more perceived value in an upgrade pack of plastic parts to make something look like an Ultramarine, where maybe if it was a transfer sheet for just Ultramarines, the value is not seen as great. Yeah. So, for example, what's the Primaris upgrade pack? £10?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't ever sell a sheet of transfers for one 10-man unit for £10.
No, but I think it's disappointing. We talked about this on the way to...
That's not a justification, by the way. That's just me thinking about why it is. Because I flipping love transfers, and it really... I think it's such a shame to see them disappear, because they allow you to take your painting and the final product to another level, basically, that, I do not have the inclination or skill or patience to learn to freehand to the levels that I see. And I think it's incredible that people do it, and it's wonderful. It's not for me. So transfers give me the chance to put something on the table that I'm happy with, which otherwise I wouldn't be able to do.
But then, would anyone really want to paint 100 Space Wolf faces?
Oh, I don't know.
Wolf heads on a shoulder pad.
I wouldn't have thought so, but
I find that I'd be surprised, and maybe they're out there. Those people who could do that quickly are out there, but
I think the other thing they let you do, which is nice, is add extra bits. So, like, again, going back to the upgrade kits, which I don't think there's anything wrong with the upgrade kits, by the way, particularly. I know that some of them have got some odd choices of what you actually get in there, but I like being able to add all the little bits. So, like, for example, on my Imperial Knight, all the little warning signs and stuff around, like, the reactor and the entrances and all of that stuff, which you aren't going to get a moulded piece of detail for that.
No.
It wouldn't look right for a start. And so it's all those little bits. So, and we say, I am aware that a number of, before people are saying, but there are transfers. The Primaris box set comes with transfers for Ultramarines, so that's cool. The Imperial Knight transfer sheet is just wonderful. Really, really nice. And there are still some great transfer sheets out there. It's just a shame that particularly those core ones that they did for the Space Marines are no longer available. And also,
like the Space
Forge
one.
World have been getting rid of some.
They have, yeah. Like the Valkyrie one was...
The Valkyrie one was stunning. And... at the end of the day, I suppose, if the demand's not there, the demand's not there. But certainly with somewhere like Forge World, which is quite specific, I think having that stuff available,
I don't see why not.
Marks you out as a little bit more specialist.
I don't see why not. The problem is, the reason why I'm really disappointed by the whole thing is it doesn't require storage. They can be so easily made to order, it's actually quite ridiculous. You could have a printer sat in the corner of the Forge World factory, printing them to order. I mean, why get rid of them?
I don't know if they produce them themselves, mate, or they outsource it.
Well, I
don't know the answer to
that.
There are some people coming to the rescue. So Fallout Hobbies, particularly in the States, I got some custom printed ones from them, which are really, really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice as well. Like I drew a design on a piece of paper, sent it off to them, and then they they improved upon it, put it on a transfer, said, "Is this what you want?" It's not cheap, but the hobby's not cheap, to be frank.
No.
So that's very, very good. And there are other transfer sites. One of the things that I didn't think about until recently is looking at model railway transfers as well. There's a lot of them, especially if you just want numbers or Roman numerals or letters, because on various scales of railway, all the way from the really tiny stuff to the bigger stuff that you find you can ride around on and all the rest of it, there are companies that produce transfers for all the lettering and logos and warning signs and all of that for all the rolling stock.
Yeah, you're right. There is. I'd never even thought of that.
So
as it's a hobby desk, we should talk about how it is that we do transfers, because I think that's useful, isn't it? So Dan's mentioned them already. There's two products, and in fact, they do more. Other ones that I'm not quite sure how they would be used, but other stuff by Microscale. So there's Microset and Microsol. Now, Microset, they both rank, as in they smell, and if you're unlucky enough to put your brush in your mouth after you've used them, taste utterly vile. And it's probably for those reasons, like Dan's alluded to, that Games Workshop doesn't produce them, because I think Games Workshop are bound by some law that other companies aren't necessarily governed by.
I think it's probably the breadth of age range that Games Workshop are looking to be able to put onto their products.
Yeah.
That's what I suspect is the case.
So essentially what you do is you get your surface, you paint it, Dan and I paint it with a gloss varnish, because having a smooth surface to put them on, the transfer on, reduces the risk of having a bubble underneath and makes the adherence a little bit better. And then you get the Microset solution and paint that on the area after the gloss varnish is dried. and then using warm water, because it softens the transfer a little bit, you get the transfer off of the sheet, moisten it. Now I put it on a warm wet sponge, rather than it soaking it, because it's easier to dry. And then I soak my brush in microset again, and then I use that to slide it onto the model. And then I paint microset over the top, once I've positioned it. And then I leave it, and let it dry for preferably overnight, actually. But it can be, I've done it after 10 minutes. I've dried it with a hairdryer and it works just as well. And then paint over microsol. Now microsol sort of dissolves, I suppose, the backing paper, doesn't it? And just leaves the pigment. And it also kind of really hammers the transfer into the surface. So with microsol, which is the second product, it will go into panel lines. It will really look painted on. And you can get a really good finish with it. And then when it's dry, some people then put another coat of gloss varnish over the top of that, and then a coat of a matte varnish of some kind, like Lamia medium or whatever, to tie it into whatever surface you're on. I often leave out the gloss varnish stage at that point. But so then what you've got is you'll have your decal, the pigment of your decal, on your shoulder pad. Now, sometimes you'll want that to look pristine and perfect. Other times I can find some of them can look a little stark, like particularly if you've used a white transfer over a background. Red I find really terrible, actually, Dan. I don't know if you've ever found that, but the tone of red is very different from any painted tone of red that I use. And then I will paint into some of them to get some sort of shading into them. And Martin Payne does that very well. And he's a chap that we've just featured on our page. So if you haven't seen his work, I suggest you go and look at his, because he does a really good job of working back into transfers. Better than anyone I've seen, actually. And also weathering. So I sometimes wash a bit of Agrax Earthshade over the top, or some weathering powders to sort of make it look like it's been there. You can chip it, and get you a desired effect. Anything you'd like to add to that? Oh, I've got a visitor. It's a goblin. Hello, goblin.
What's that?
That's Tristan in his school photo.
No.
It's Lady Khorne. It's not a goblin.
It's Lady Khorne. I don't know what her name is, darling.
No, mine said her name.
What's her name?
I don't know her name. You say her.
Oh, but I don't know any of them, darling.
Mine just said
Well, I know
her.
Tristan, of course, but...
No, that one's I don't know her name.
You going to say hello to Dan Jolly?
Hello.
So, where's the phone?
It's in my ear. You say hello there. Say hello.
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 You can hear him from there.
Yeah, I can hear him through there. It's clever, isn't it? Do you have anything to say about transfers?
I do indeed.
Oh, I hear something.
I'm going to pause it and take Elwyn off.
Yeah, so
okay.
Things that I would add.
Sorry about that, everyone.
So, firstly, I'm going to post a couple of links over the next couple of weeks to some videos on YouTube, which I used and changed my world when it came to transfers when I first started.
Yeah.
And it's also worth saying I had the really fortunate chance to have Henry Steele show me some stuff around transfers when I was at an MKA painting course, and his work with transfers is amazing. So, couple of things.
So they're not called MKA there anymore.
No, it's Cult to Paint now. I think he does his stuff for, so that's cool. So, firstly, with a microset, what it's doing is it's softening the transfer. So, I think it's really important when you move the transfer onto the miniature, which has got microset on, that you leave it for a few minutes, just to soften. maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. You'll find your way. I mean, I'm not an expert, but that's what my advice would be. And then what I tend to use is a cotton bud, and I'll start by pushing the cotton bud down on the center of the transfer to lock it in place. And then start rolling the cotton bud out to the edge of the transfer, which rolls the air out from underneath it. I'll do that all over, and particularly on the bigger transfers, that's really important, just to make sure the air bubbles are gone. Once you've done that, let it dry, like Ben says. Now, it's important, though, that if you're doing a transfer over a particularly delicate or difficult surface, the example Henry showed me was on the door of a Demios Rhino, and you want it to go down into the cracks or anything like that, you need to get a very, very sharp knife blade at this point and start cutting the transfer in ever so slightly, because otherwise, when you get to the next stage, the transfer will go funny as it sucks down onto the model. Because what the microsole then does is, like Ben says, it dissolves the paper, but it's kind of weird because you put it on and sometimes it can actually start looking like it's bubbling.
Yeah, it can. It's got to have
that's
faith.
It. You leave it and it will suck down onto the model. And that's where you get that, where it conforms and it starts to get that painted look. What I would then say is it's really important that if you want to battle damage your transfer, so you want to take a bit off, either with a sharp knife blade or what have you, you got to do it now before you get your varnish on, because otherwise it will be a bugger. Also worth saying that once you've put the microsole on, you won't be able to move the transfer because it's kind of adhered to the surface. So if you're not happy with its position, or you change your mind, you need to be doing that while you're at the microset stage, to go back in on. So those are, I suppose, the key bits that I would add to what Ben said. But the main thing is, rank amateur in comparison to some of the stuff. And there's a couple of really good videos, so I'll stick them up. But I spent a long time being afraid to try it out. I bought microset and microsole and just sat it on the shelf. It is much simpler and quite enjoyable, more enjoyable than I thought. So that's the key things from me. And I would, when you've done what you want to do, before you do any weathering, if you want to scrape bits off, great, do that. But before you start hitting it with powders and stuff, get a coat of varnish on. And actually, the thing we were shown at the MKA course, or what will now be the cult paint, is, very thin, but we used a lot of gloss varnish layers in between doing things, because the advantage is with a gloss varnish layer that if you then make a mistake, if you go back in with some thinner or cleaner on a cotton bud, I think it's thinner is the one I use mostly, you can actually remove the paint back to, as long as you're gentle and you don't go mad, back to the previous gloss. It's like a save point. That's how they described it. It's like a save point on your miniature. So you can go back and take stuff off back to that point. So there you go. Couple of actual hobby tips in our hobby desk section. And some common sense almost from me, which is weird.
Well, I think it was you that got me into transfers, because I saw your Iron Warriors Rhino and had a kitten, because it's just it's stunning, and I really want you to post pictures of that, because you keep avoiding doing it, but now it's happening, because it really is very good, and that was a product of that course, and it changed my view on transfers completely. And those videos are very good, guys. They were the ones that Dan sent me when I was first getting into them, so I really suggest you have a look at them. And don't be afraid of using transfers, because you can very quickly paint for example, the Ultramarine symbol on a whole company of Ultramarines would take you an afternoon.
It's also worth saying a couple of things to be careful of as well. Some transfer sheets, particularly a couple of the Forge World ones, are not like, I don't know if it's a die cut thing or what it is they do, but some of them, it doesn't matter what shape you cut out around the transfer, the paper, the transfer sheet, the film, is the same shape as the piece, the thing you want. So you put it in the water and it will float off and it's fine. But some of them are just one big sheet of that stuff over the whole sheet. So you have to cut that. The shape you cut out will be the shape you get. It's also worth saying that there are different types. So you've got water slide transfers are different to some others. So I made the mistake of getting some transfers to do shields on some Vikings, and they weren't water slide, and I didn't realise, and I was scratching my head until I read the instructions that came with them, and they were kind of different. You essentially peeled off one side, stuck them onto the model, and then wetted the backing paper and took it off. It was really different. So keep an eye out for that. I think it was Little Big Men Studio. Lovely transfers once you knew how to use them.
So there you go. Transfers.
So there's a bit on transfers. Obviously, if you've got questions that you go onto the internet and find someone that actually knows what they're talking about first. But if that doesn't work, by all means, message us and ask. It's really important to Ben and I that people love and enjoy their hobby and feel like it's accessible and they can achieve the things they want to get, what their hobby is. Every time we get a little message from someone, I've picked up this, I've done that, I've started that because I've been listening to you guys. It's just fantastic. We're just so happy with that. So please do get in contact. We'll find time in amongst all the legions of adoring fans to respond to every message.
So, the next thing I'd like to talk about, we're going to, like I said, we've got a slightly longer hobby desk this time. Won't be that much longer, guys, but, is batch painting, because people have been asking me about batch painting. I'm just trying to find who this article's written for, because what it comes down to when it comes to batch painting with me is I read an article in White Dwarf. It's issue 308. It's an August issue. It's the one with the wood elves on the front, and it was it's an article about tyrannids or tyrannids, however you choose to pronounce that, and It gives a couple of examples of people's different armies. So there's Phil Kelly's. I don't know if you remember them, the black ones with the yellow markings.
Yeah, I think they were Phil Kelly's.
Yeah, and there's a couple in there that are really nice. But there's one done by Guy. I can't see his second name. Irritating when they do that. They'll just put Guy has done this, but. It's an article on how to speed paint tyrannids, his tyrannids, and they really it completely changed my mind about painting. So the opening paragraph says a lot to me. So there comes a day in a painter's life when he realizes, when the realization dawns that in order to get an army on the battlefield, you can't paint every single model to the best of his ability. For years I used to scoff at this sentiment, presented as it was to me by this very magazine, but then I calculated to paint every snotling in my goblin army at my best level would take me more time than there was actually in my life. It hurts like tyrannid bioacid in a paper cut to admit it, but admit it I shall, you sometimes have to paint quickly. And then he goes on to say, but painting quickly doesn't mean painting badly. It's just painting differently. And it's a really good article that talks about brushing, dry brushing, sort of basic principles of how to paint a large unit. And there's I'd like to go through. I'll post the pictures of this up on our show notes. But so one of the things he talks about is have a limited colour palette, have a clear idea of what you're going to do, and tie stages together. So for example, if you're going to ink or wash something, try and get it so you can wash the whole model rather than just sections of a model. And I think that's key a lot of the time. So his Tyrannids are dry brushed, base coated, then dry brushed, and then he paints the carapace sort of stripes on. And then he uses an all over brown ink wash. This is how old this article is. And then picks out the details using a bit of red, bit of green wash, and a bit of red ink. Now, we've got some real blessings nowadays with the products that we've got to be able to do. I literally tried to recreate those Tyrannids and I think I got them fairly close to as he
when
did them.
When did you do that, Steve?
Oh, it must be 12 years ago.
Oh, right, cool.
But it's before I worked in Games Workshop. You can tell because none of the Tyrannids have their mould lines taken off of them. But it's nowadays we've got some really useful products. Like the washes are they're massive. They change everything when it comes to speed painting. And looking at the way he's done his, using things like Agrax Earthshade rather than coming up with a concoction of brown ink and water and a bit of washing up liquid, it does make things a lot easier. So my Nighthorn, which are what I was working on and what people have been asking about, are quite literally zenith airbrushed with white to get the gradient, and then just washes of a few different colour browns, and then a green wash almost all over, and then black washes towards the bottom. So it's really, really fast, and I'm doing them across a whole unit. And it makes it really fast because you can do the same stage across everything, and there's no fiddly bits. You know, you're trying to remove the amount of fiddly bits that you're doing. And if you're doing the detail, keep it simple.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense, and only do the details that are important. So for those Tyranids, the only thing I did, literally the only thing I used a detail brush on was the yellow eyes. And it's just a little blob of yellow. And it's done.
The thing is, you got to think about where it's going to be viewed from, haven't you?
You do. And actually, when it comes to the unit, how does the unit look? Rather than how does the individual model look? How does the army look?
Yeah. How
does the unit look? Where am I choosing to put my detail? Should I spend a little bit of extra time on the character? Because that's the one that people are likely to pick up. But making sure that the process that you're using, it cuts out as much chaff as you possibly can. So a limited number of paints. So a limited number of processes. And then as broad things as you can. So dry brushing the whole model rather than dry brushing a section. Washing the whole model rather than washing a whole section. Washing it section by section. The highlights, you don't really want to go back and highlight anything. So use watered down paints and washes to keep your dry brushed underlayers or, zenith airbrushed, base coats there so that you're adding the darker bits rather than, having to highlight them back up again. So when I did my Blood Reavers, the skin was very much done by zenith highlighted with, white over, grey. And then very thin down colours of the paint. So Bugman's went on, Rhinoxide. Actually, I found that Rhinoxide watered down over grey looked pretty good anyway. Yeah. I didn't need to do much more than that. And then a little bit of highlighting, some wash and a little bit of highlighting. But the washing, I was using colours that I wanted to tie into the rest of the model. So quite often they all got a coat of Agrax, the darker skin tones. Across the whole model, so across all of the leather and the brown bits and all of it. Because, for example, so take a pair of trousers. So if you've got, say Steel Ilgen brown for the trouser colour, but you've got my leg wraps I did with Rakarth flesh, which is quite a bright colour, and then the leather work I did with Mournfang brown, and then the boots, were Mournfang brown as well. That all got a coat of Agrax Earthshade, slightly thinned down. I didn't need to do anything else.
Yeah.
because, you know, it looked all right at that point. And you can go back in and highlight if you want, but you don't need to get a fine brush to do that. When I'm batch painting, I use a size 2 brush. I don't go any smaller. And that's another top tip. Get your detail brushes and put them away. You don't need them. And psychologically say, I'm not going to use them. The smallest brush I will use is
except
one.
Except for those eyes.
Yeah, except for the eyes. You know, but if you've got a decent size 2, it's got a point that I could do like a simple eye on. And then just use that brush. You don't need to use another brush. And if I'm using a dry brush, it's a big dry brush. It's not a tiny dry brush. It's because I want to do a large area. I don't, you know, it doesn't really matter. So that's the kind of my brief potted on how I do batch painting. And that article changed the way I considered painting in its entirety, because before then I did used to sit there and think, how on earth am I ever going to paint an army of Tyranids? How is that possible? You know, and that sentence, if I calculate how long it would take me to do my goblin army, it would take me the whole of my life. And I think that's true. If you did that, and I've got a lot of respect for the people who have those really slow grow, beautiful armies that take them like 2 years to do 30 Space Marines, and they look stunning. And that's their hobby. But, I, like you, have this little part of my soul which wants to have whopping great big Tyrannid armies and hordes of gribbly goblins and, you know, hordes of ghosts coming out of crypts. I'm not gonna blend them all. It's not happening. So I use these techniques, and it does mean, you know, if you've got decent brush control and relax a little bit, and he talks about the 4 things that hold a painter back from doing it, and I think he's absolutely bang on. So, I'll get the article back. Completionism, perfectionism, guilt, and blending. They're the four cheats enemies. 4 enemies cheats enemies.
I think I was just going to say something about, because I think it's important that you don't necessarily have to compromise on the end result. What you need to do is maybe find a different way of achieving it as well. So you haven't got to necessarily. What we're not saying is your models need to look worse. And in sometimes it might be that you get to a stage where the model doesn't look as good up close as maybe you'd like it to be. That might happen, but equally there are times. So using dry brushing effectively, using airbrushes effectively, are ways that you can achieve effects that could be done through like wet blending, for example, but maybe would take a considerable amount of time longer. I think that's really important. And like Ben said about wanting those big armies, it also depends how much time you've got. So if you only get to paint for a couple of hours a week, then it's going to take you a long time to get an army done. Whichever way you paint it, but certainly if you choose to paint it with a huge amount of detail, and what you want from your hobby as well, you know, if you've got a particular thing in mind that you desperately want to recreate, and that's the only thing you really want to do, then why not paint it at a fantastic standard? And if you really enjoy the painting process, painting at a fantastic standard. But, you know, if you want to play big games with lots of figures and you want them all painted and you don't want to pay someone to paint them for you, you do need to have that realization, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's the only way I ever ended up getting anything done. I distinctly remember, you know, between the age of about 11 and probably even while I was in games, maybe up to when War of the Ring came out with those orcs.
Yes, yeah.
You know,
those orcs are a really good example of how to batch.
Yeah, and even I would say probably all through the time doing the hobby up until when I left Games Workshop, really, I would start things and not finish them, or I would start things and get annoyed because they didn't look like I wanted, or I would start things and I couldn't achieve my vision. And it wasn't until I had a few months off hobbying, when I left Games Workshop, and when I came back to it, and I just made this conscious decision that actually there was stuff I wanted to get done, and if it didn't look great, well, I'd try harder the next time, and just keep going. And that's actually resulted in, the thing is, since, when did I think it's 6 or 7 years ago when I left, and in that time, everything that I own that's Khorne that's painted has been painted. Everything Stormcast obviously has been painted. My whole High Elf army, 4,500 points from 8th edition, has been painted. My 3,500, nearly 4,000 points of Salamanders has been painted. 3,000 points of Ultramarines / Guard have been painted. The only thing I haven't painted in that time was my Eldar army. So in the sort of, as a kind of achieved, in the, 11, 10, 12 years, no, 13 years of the first part of my hobby where I was obsessed with this perfection requirement. I've got one 2,500 point army to show for it.
Yeah.
And then in the 7 years after that, I still by no means have painted a lot in comparison to some in that time, but I've got multiple armies to show for it. And actually, arguably, certainly with the Khorne, they look better than that initial army because I've learnt different techniques and painted them in different ways.
Yeah, yeah. I think second edition has a lot to answer for when it comes to painting, because everyone was going for that blended finish. But there we go.
But it is really important to say, like, that's not to say that we either don't appreciate
absolutely
the other
not.
ways of doing things, and those are fantastic. And if that's what people choose to do, wonderful. I think the message here is for those guys listening that are looking at piles and piles of plastic sprues and are feeling a bit, but like, you know, I think daily I see a post on Facebook on one of the groups or another saying, how do you guys motivate? How do you get over this pile of sprues? You know, people face that, and especially with the massive amount of releases that are just bombing out all the time. And
it's a real struggle to keep up with.
It is, and I just think it's just really important that there's nothing quite as good for the soul as finishing off a unit of models.
Okay.
No, but it's like, you know, the sense of achievement is really important. I mean, and you can have that set, you know, in anything in life, it's really important. But you can get that sense when you, through the hobby, through completing something that you've invested time and effort into. I think it's really good for you.
That's true.
As a person.
Yeah, I do. I agree. Finishing something is refreshing, isn't it? So, I hope the guys find that useful. I'm going to do a painting guide. I'm working on a painting guide for my Nighthawk. It's going to be our first painting guide. I hope people find that useful. It should be done possibly by the time that this is finished and out with you. But that's just a little, you know, an answer to two questions that we're getting a lot recently, which is how do you paint so quickly, and how do you do transfers? I think
if anyone has anything to add, please do as well. Like we're always on this journey learning, and we you know, Ben and I do a podcast because we love chatting to each other, and if it helps inspire anyone in the hobby, wonderful. We certainly don't do it in order to spread our expertise. So we're more than happy to take feedback, suggestions, or actually, no, you're wrong, you're doing it that way and you could do it this way. Just be polite. Please.
All right, guys. Well, we shall head on over now to the Galaxy of War.
Welcome back. We are in the grim, very tiny darkness of the far future. And why is it tiny, Ben?
Oh, well, the board space is much smaller this time. Oh, no. You're talking about a shrunk scale, a new scale. Took me a while to catch on.
Oh,
yeah, we're in 8mm.
Well, that's my exciting intro to the segment blown out of the water, isn't it? By
It
a
is,
volcano cannon! There, I've added some excitement in. Yes, I am talking about Titanicus, although you can be forgiven for thinking I was talking about the smaller scale games of Kill Team. So, let's have a chat about Kill Team to start with.
Yeah?
Yeah, why not? We watched the video. So Ben and I haven't really followed Kill Team a great deal, mainly because I've been painting my deck in, as you've already heard, and Ben's been engaged in getting stuff painted up for his AOS, and also
it's just overwhelming.
Well, it's just crazy, isn't it? So there's a lot of stuff coming out at the moment. If you are somebody that's into the whole range of Games Workshop's offer, then you are going to be quite overwhelmed at the moment. And it's fantastic. It's great to see a lot of stuff, but certainly I can't do it all. And Titanicus is the thing that's really catching my eye. So, we don't know loads about Kill Team. We know a few snippets that have come out from the community. We have just watched, just before recording, the how to play, which I thought was very well presented. I loved their studio, particularly the chainsaw up in the corner. Very useful if you catch your opponent doing something they shouldn't.
I'm very impressed with those how to play videos. I mean, Becca Scott did a fantastic job with the Age of Sigmar one, and that chap did a great job with that one.
They're very good, aren't they? They're very clear, I think.
Yeah, they are. There's a very clear idea of what they're trying to do, which is to get across in 10 minutes whether or not I'm interested in that game.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn the rules from it. Well, you could do in some ways, but
you'd get a structure, wouldn't you?
You'd get a good structure and understanding.
But you'd get an outline, particularly if you felt a little overwhelmed looking at the rules initially. You get an outline. So, interestingly, for those that aren't sure about Kill Team and what it entails, then I would suggest you go to the 40k website, and then there's a Kill Team option on there. You can find that through the community site. And on there's a how to play, and it's really worth watching because it just points out the main differences. You will notice the main differences, I should say. It doesn't point them out. If you play 40k, you'll recognise a lot of it, and other bits are totally different. So activation is alternating. So yes. You do a model, and then they do a model, and then you do a model, and so on and so forth.
I really like that kind of mechanic in a skirmish game.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well because it's in each phase. So you maintain the initiative throughout the actual battle round, but you don't activate a model and do everything with it and then move on to the next one. You activate a model and do what's relevant to that phase, be that movement, shooting, psychic, fight phase, or morale phase. So, interesting that there's no charge phase, unlike in Warhammer 40k. So if you do decide you're going into combat, you're going into combat. You're not going to be shooting at people. And also, obviously, that's limiting because you aren't getting to move and then charge. It's a straight out charge. It's 2 dice.
Which happens in the movement phase.
Yeah, which happens in the movement phase. So you haven't got that on top of a move.
My favourite new part of the movement phase, and I forgot what it's called, but it's a sort of steady yourself. So, settling down, getting a firing position so that you get bonuses in your shooting phase. I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I like that a lot.
So that looked good. I think, at the moment, obviously, they are using kill teams made out of existing kits. That literally it looks like they've taken a unit from an army that's in the display cabinet and using it. There is some examples appearing. Oh, excuse me one moment, listeners. My telephone is ringing.
So was that your call to conscription, Dan?
Yeah, it was just Khorne ringing up with this week's quota for skulls. So, but he's, I've put him on hold. I've said, you got to wait because we're recording the podcast. So he was fine with that. We have that relationship, me and the Blood God. It's good. So we were talking about, so at the moment, it's just existing kits. So it'd be really interesting, I think, to see as they begin to bring out maybe upgrade kits or kits, because they're saying it's going to be fully supported. They've not specifically said what that's going to look like, but it'd be great to see add-ons or new bits and pieces, so that you can do a bit more to your models, to personalise them.
You've got those specialisms, haven't they? They said there was 12 specialisms, like sniper and demolition. Love to have like special kits to upgrade, like guardsmen to demolitionists and stuff. That would be flipping brilliant.
I love the idea of a sniper space wolf who would clearly just beat the enemy over the head with the end of the sniper rifle.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see that, because I think that will make the game more of its own thing, which would be good. And obviously, it has given rise to some fantastic terrain. Oh my goodness! I mean, you tuned in and listened to the.
I did, yeah. The Stitch and Bitch with Peachy and Duncan and Kerry, and his name I forgot. The chap who designed it, but incredibly knowledgeable dude with some really nice to hear his thoughts on what went into designing the whole structure. And what's cool is him and Dave Andrews sound like they were the lead, and he made the claim that he'd put together more of the Sector Imperialis kits than anybody else as doing his previous jobs. And I think he did say what job he did, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was true, actually. And of course, Dave Andrews made the original kits. So, with them together, they were able to say what they would like to see in the new ones, what they'd improved on in the old ones.
So this is, so this is, you're talking about the improvements over the old Cities of Death terrain.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things the problem, this is going to sound really sad, but the thing that surprised me the most was just how big they are. The new buildings are massive. Like, the sections look like they're twice the size of the old sections. So when I first saw them, I was like, oh, they've just replaced the sections. But it's not like that at all. I mean, you could very quickly put together a substantially sized building without any trouble at all. One of the things that he's talking about at the moment, or they were talking about, is that they've designed the Sector Imperialis to go with the Mechanicum one, and they're looking at expansions in the future. So he was talking about habitation blocks and stuff like that, because he's imagined all the stuff that they've built at the moment is a place where people come to go to work, not where they live. So, I'd love to see some like habitation buildings
and some stairs.
Yes, if anyone's listening, please design some internal stairs to bolt into structures, because they just don't make sense without them.
Yeah, they do need some stairs. That would be good. Well, I've seen a few different ways of painting it as well. So one of the things I was having a little bit of a moment about recently was the amount of detail on stuff. So some of the scenery is just mad. All the pipes and broken radiators and all that. And I'm like, I don't want to paint that. It's terrain. I want to dry brush it and coat it in coffee. Do you remember doing that?
I do.
That was a while ago, wasn't it? That must have been before washes.
It was before washes.
Yeah, Ben and I were doing a city fight board for Games Workshop Plymouth, and we washed the building with coffee, didn't we?
You did? Yeah, it works very well.
It did work well, and it gave a nice aroma for a while, which was lovely.
A bit like my Athelian camo shade, which smells like herbs because I've been using it on my scatter, which is herbs.
Oh yeah. So there we go, and I've completely lost my train of thought. Oh, painting, yes. So I've seen some that are painted where every detail is picked out, and some others which are more sort of one colour with certain details picked out in silver. And what I would say is they both look great. So I'm pleased about that, because I want it to look good, but I don't want to spend forever painting that stuff.
Well, remember that it's like we've talked about with army painting, is that you can get things to a standard that is usable, base coat it, dry brush it, wash it, leave it, get it on the table and get using it. And then if you've got a spare half an hour, pick it up, paint the radiator.
Yeah, that's true.
Paint the window. They had some good tips on painting stained glass windows with overhead projector pens, which I thought was a really cool little section.
It's a good idea, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think, let's just pulling it back to Kill Team, I can see it being very, very popular. They've spent a lot of time. The focus at the moment in Games Workshop seems to be trying to get things balanced. And you can see in the units that they've chosen to be in the Kill Team. So some armies have got like loads of units in the Kill Teams and some haven't. They've got some choices that aren't there at all. And I think
you mean there's no knights?
Yeah, they've been trying to balance it out so that, you know, you're playing as fair a game as possible, and it comes across very much as a much easier to pick up game. Like you can get your box with your scenery in that is a sector that literally comes as a box, and your Kill Team, and play it very quickly. And I've always thought one of the drawbacks of 40k, and I know Games Workshop have had this thought right back when they streamlined 2nd edition down to 3rd edition, that you need an afternoon sometimes to play a game, or a whole evening to play a single game. And if your stuff isn't to hand, it can take a long time. You know, you meet up with your mate, have a chat, get your beverages in.
Oh my goodness, it takes
out.
Me ages.
It can be a really...
And I'm lucky I've got a setup to play it in. But like, sometimes, I remember Dan and Tom used to come around semi-regularly, and in the end, we had to say, right, you got to eat before you come. Because otherwise, by the time we've ordered food, and then it's arrived, and then we've eaten it, and we're not starting playing until goodness knows when. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Because it's a social event, though, as well, I suppose.
It is, and that's a very important part of the hobby.
So actually, within that social event, the game itself needs to be quicker.
Well, yeah, and that's perhaps where Kill Team comes into it, because, and kind of almost in contrast, what I'm excited about Kill Team to, what we're talking about in the hobby section is that you've only got, you know, for some Kill Teams are 3 models.
Yeah.
And that's not, you can really lavish attention on 3 models and add character and give them a backstory. The biggest ones are 20 models, which are just, imagine being the 3-person Kill Team coming up against 20.
I like the idea of doing things like having, you know, a rampaging Chaos Knight Armiger or something, and then trying to take it out with your Kill Team. I love that idea.
Yeah, I mean,
you could make up that, I'm sure.
What I was excited to see in that video is that it talked about narrative stuff as well. So it's not just a competitive, that, you know, they've gone for the full 3 ways to play again, which is really cool. What I'd like to see, and I don't know if they have or haven't, is make it so it can easily sort of streamline into a campaign. So you can have an overall campaign of 40k, but you could use the Kill Teams for certain parts of it. I guess that's a separate product, actually, like a Firestorm kind of thing for 40k.
That would be
nice.
Flipping awesome, wouldn't it?
It would, wouldn't it? Yeah, I love it.
Because you could have key strategic things that give bonuses to your core army, but if your enemy goes off with their Kill Team and blows them up, that'll be brilliant.
Yeah, it would.
The problem is, right, before we started recording, you asked me what I thought of Kill Team. And I said that for me, again, and I often say this, is anything that provides another offer where people that either don't currently collect and play Games Workshop games or war games will be able to enter into the hobby, or someone that's currently already in the hobby but maybe is either completely lapsed or is a bit on a low burn because they can't really see anything that excites them, or they don't want to face paint a whole big army, gets them re-engaged, playing games and enjoying their hobby and generating income so that Games Workshop can make more models is a good thing, but it wasn't really for me because I wanted Titanicus. Then what happened is I've watched a video about it, we're chatting about it, and now I'm like, oh my goodness, I need this. Damn it, Ben!
The scenery is a big selling point, I think, as well. Just for the box set. I mean, if you've seen the box set laid out, there's a lot in it. A lot in it.
Yeah, but the other thing is I could do a kill team of like little like Ultramarines or something. Oh, it would be so good. Or a proper Deathwatch kill team. Oh,
Deathwatch kill team.
Goodness me. Right, quick. We need to talk about... Do you have anything further to add on kill team, dude? Because I need to talk about little battling robots, because otherwise...
I don't have much more... No, I don't have anything. I'm excited by it.
I'm not sure anyone's particularly interested if you do, but I thought I'd give you the chance.
I'm quite excited by the fact that each of the different units comes with scenery.
Are you just not going to comment now? You're like, I'm going to say something stupid. You're just going to ignore me.
Yes, basically. Like the shipping containers and that kind of stuff. I think that's a neat way of building up your collection.
Oh, do you know what would be ace? A mission where there were 5 or 6 shipping containers and the objective, and the enemy force was like coming in, but the other kill team was hidden in in one of the shipping containers. But you didn't know which one. And they burst out. And actually, what I would do is have another shipping container, a spare one, painted black with a red stripe going down the side and up. And then when my kill team came out, I'd put it down and play the A-Team music. It would be amazing. Da, 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 da. Oh, it'd be fantastic. And there'd be flying tanks and all sorts. Oh, it'd be brilliant. So anyway, when are we pre-ordering kill team? No.
That Imperial Guard special character with the big heavy bolter would make a great Mr. T, wouldn't he?
Oh, he would. He would.
Because he's got the mohawk and everything.
Oh.
Right, on to big battling robots, dude.
And I could eat Snickers bars because Mr. T advertises those.
He does.
Battling robots.
Get some nuts, fool.
Right. So, we got to go to the Forge World Open Day. Up at Warhammer World, which was flipping epic anyway, I have to say. Chris, who came with us, had never been before, and that was just fantastic to see him running around, getting excited.
It's always nice watching someone in the exhibit who's never been before.
Do you know what was really good? I usually don't spend a lot of time looking at the cabinets that aren't the display things, so just the studio armies. But because Chris hadn't been, he was spending a lot of time looking at them, and we were just going around together and talking about each one and different things we liked or weren't keen on, or, ideas we had for cool armies. A problem was, like, obviously every cabinet, you just end up thinking, ooh, Caradron Overlords was the one for me. I came away thinking, I really want them.
Yeah, but it doesn't take much to convince you about Caradron Overlords.
No, it's because I love them, mate. I think they're a brilliant idea, but this isn't the Mortal Realms anyway. But what on earth was I even talking about? Oh, we went to Warhammer World. So, that's ridiculous today. Sorry, everyone. So we were at Warhammer World and we went for the open day, and actually we were there for a good couple of hours before we even went through to look at what was there for the open day. Just looking around, looking at some of the awesome new tables they've got, Necromunda tables, looking brilliant. And we went into the open day and they had Titanicus, and I'm sure if you're interested in any way, with Titanicus, you'll have seen by now that there was an unboxing video where they just gave the box to a member of the public, and they opened it and videoed it on their phone. And that and the box set of just the rules. And Tony Cottrell was sat at a table and we were looking at sprues. They had bought a 40k scale Warhound Titan to troll their customers with, because people keep asking about the Warhound and it's not been seen yet. But they had, I thought that was quite funny. They had Reaver Titans and Warlord Titans there in all sorts of colours. So yeah, there was a lot to see for Titanicus. For me, it's got to the point now, though, where I'm like, right.
Just give us the box.
That's it. I mean, to be honest,
yeah,
we've seen pretty much all of that at Warhammer Fest. And now we just want the box, and there's still no word on the price, although it will be in White Dwarf, which is only a couple of weeks away. Was it you who had a chat with Phil about the boards and using polystyrene to go in them?
I did, yeah. So, yeah, do you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, because so they were showing off the big 4x4 board, 2x2 sculpted scenery tiles, which I have been on and off about getting, but one of the things that really bothers me is that they can bow. And Ben, you had a chat about how to prevent that, didn't you?
Yeah, so they were at Fest, but there was things on them, and the ones that you could grab and properly interact with were behind the tables at Fest. But I think what was nice about the ones that they had there is they were the unpainted ones, and there wasn't as many people around, so you could really get up and have a look at them. And there is some great details on there, and it was nice to, like a crashed aircraft and blown up Lehman Russ tanks and barricades and little buildings and pillboxes and fortifications. They're all built into the tile, ready to go. And I was chatting to him about what the whole concept, and they reckon 4x4 table is the optimum size for Titan. And they wanted it because they've understood a lot of them have played historical wargaming before and swapped scales, and how tough it is to swap scales because you've got to make your own, make it all from scratch effectively. But they wanted to be able to provide a product both in the box by the modular scenery, which echoes the Titanicus box sets at the start, when the very first one. But also a board where you could literally you can buy the board, buy the main box set, and you are completely ready to go. Which I thought was a really cool idea. He didn't know the price for sure, but he was thinking about 50 quid a tile, which I didn't think was bad, actually.
I would be surprised if it was not more than that, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Just based on what the other ones cost. But I would be happy.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't. One of the things that they never seem to be able to talk about properly or know is the price of things, which is a bit of a shame, really. But, yes, bowing in the middle, and he had two there, one that he'd done it to and one that he hadn't. And effectively what he'd got is a 1 centimetre or 10 mil thick blue polystyrene sheet and double-sided tape. Yep. And double-sided taped it to the underneath of the board, and it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. No bow in the middle, and you didn't get that spring when you pressed on it. Because the problem with the Forge World ones compared to the Realm of Battle ones is the Realm of Battle boards have got a lattice of plastic across the whole of the back.
Yeah.
Which stop this from happening, but the Forge World ones don't. So that's their solution, is to get this polystyrene sheet, which isn't that expensive, really. It's a neat little addition. And we do know a couple of sources to get that kind of stuff, which we'll put on the show notes. Because blue polystyrene is difficult to get hold of sometimes, if you don't know where you're looking for it. Yeah, I really liked them. What was cool there is they had a train, a resin train, done in the 8mm scale. And when I asked if that was going to be available, not currently, it's not. But effectively, there's a whole load of stuff that they've built just for themselves, and cast up, that if the product does well, will end up getting released. So that's exciting.
So go out and buy it when it's out.
Yeah, so that's the boards.
It was nice to see the sprues with the sort of templates and measuring gauges and little objectives and defense points up close, and they all actually come in the box set, which is just the rules only box set. Which was nice to see.
I mean, it's one of the things that's worth saying about the big mega box set is there's nothing in it that isn't in the other box sets. There's no product in there that you can only get in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which means if you were looking at it and as far as I've been told, it's a limited run as well. So they're only going to do the big box set for a limited number of boxes. And I don't think that you're going to, we'll be able to see, but I don't think you'd be saving that much money on it. It is just a way of getting everything all at once.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because Andy Hoare keeps saying it's the best value box set ever, like starter box set. Because
he also keeps saying it's the most expensive.
Yes. I mean, I've heard that what they were saying at Fest was that roughly you'd probably be getting a Warlord Titan
for free,
and that they were regularly comparing the Warlord Titan. I think perhaps a bit excessively to an Imperial Knight, because it isn't quite as big as an Imperial Knight. We'll see. I mean, it's all conjecture, isn't it? But White Dwarf will be out in a minute.
Yeah, so if you're a bit overwhelmed by the concept of dropping whatever hideous price that's going to be all at once, you can pick up the others separately, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, Ben the Base and I have discussed, depending on the relative price points, getting the Grandmaster box and then one box of the rules, and then each having a Titan out of it to save a few pennies to put towards terrain.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Because I really want cool terrain.
Yeah, you want the boards, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And actually, the other thing that the polystyrene idea has opened up to me is Zone Mortalis. Because the fact that bows drives me flipping mental when you're spending that much money on it. But now, if I can stop that happening, because the thing for Zone Mortalis that excites me is I think it's a lot more usable than I originally realised. So, like, when it first came out, it was specifically for 40k, for 30k, like the battles that on spaceships. But I can also, well, it's obviously the tiles that are used in the Necromunda box game are based on it.
Yeah.
So I really like those. I like the idea of playing Necromunda in it. And the fact that it's more 2D than 3D doesn't actually bother me particularly. Because I think visually it's very cool. And also Kill Team would fit really well in it.
Yeah, it would.
And there are some open sections as well. So there's nothing to stop you having, like, maybe... Oh my goodness, I just get excited just thinking about this stuff. If you had the Zone Mortalis around sort of the edges and then a more open area in the middle, which could essentially be your Enginorium or what have you, and then have like big reactors and stuff like that, that'd be ace.
Would? It'd be very cool.
Yeah, you can have Zone Mortalis around the outside, and then the middle could be like your Enginorium, and then you could get the Sector Mechanicus stuff to give some height.
Yeah.
And have, like, the plasma reactors and blow it off. Flipping Nora! Ah! There's so much cool stuff to do. And there's those thermo generator things now. I think I've even got some of them. I have. I got 2 of them. And all the pipes and... Oh, dear.
Well, there we go. Dan's worked out a way to use the Zone Mortalis.
So anyway, yeah. I'm excited.
You could play... You could play Titanicus across the Zone Mortalis in a weird kind of way. If say it was a Forge world.
Yeah, and have like a Titan hangar bay.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
So, shall we...
What you could do... Oh, I don't know. Right, I'm going to hold back that excitement. I'm thinking around the idea of having like a battle set in the Zone Mortalis of like troops trying to get to a Titan. You could even use it as the inside of an Imperator Titan. Oh, yeah. And you could remortgage your house to do it. This is silly.
Should we go to the mortal realms?
I think we should. We need to get out of here. This Galaxy of War is too exciting.
Alright, guys. We'll see you on the other side.
Dude, it was so good.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Mortal Realms, mighty listeners. It's the Soul Wars still. I'm having a whale of a time with Sigmar.
I
absolutely loving it.
Yeah, I'm going to record that, keep that for posterity.
Yeah.
You saying that?
Well, there's so much more.
But there's no high elves, Ben.
Well, I know. I'll get over that though. There's just so much more detail now, dude. There's so much more depth. Like,
what you mean after the game's been out for 3 years?
Yeah, I know, but there's the bits about it that it felt, when I first saw it, it felt really superficial. But now there's those little bits that are starting to make it feel like a story, like a reality, like a properly thought through universe.
Yeah.
Like, just little bits as you're reading through the books where you're like, oh, that's really cool. Oh, that's really sinister. Like, let's just take an example, because I think it's useful. But the Sacrosanct Chamber, I was a bit like, oh, as much as that video was really funny, Sigmar, you can't just solve all your problems by opening another chamber. The hell I can't. That was funny, but there was a little part of my mind was like, oh, it's just another chamber. What, where does this fit in? But now I've got the book and I'm reading about what their job was and why they're, the reason for their existence. It's really, really cool. It adds that, because we've always known that the reforging process was a bit dodgy. And,
yeah.
And Sigmar knew that, and he was aware of that when he sent them out, that it wasn't perfected. But it needed to happen, and he was willing to take that risk. And largely, although people lose a little bit of their memory, the reforging process, for the most part, reading the books, is okay. Yeah. It works. But that's because he created the Sacrosanct Chamber to oversee the process.
Yeah.
To keep it sanctified, to make sure that the souls are cleansed and, support them through the reforging process. But there's lovely little bits of background, like sometimes they're just too broken or they're just too messed up that they have to be sort of put to rest. But because their soul is, in a sense, been made immortal, they can't just dissipate. And if he lets Chaos get hold of it or Nagash get hold of it, then they can be turned into something horrific. So they kind of put them in these statues in the Avenue of Saints, and it talks about people walking through there, and if they listen carefully, they can almost hear the screams of the souls trapped in these statues. But no one's ever dared to go to Sigmar and go, "What's that about?" Because it's like, yeah, you don't question me.
What they've done, or what they continue to do, is add a consequence to being a Stormcast.
Yes.
From the beginning, where there was seemingly no consequence, and therefore it was a little bit like playing a computer game where you just regenerate anyway, so it doesn't matter, you can just throw yourself at something.
Yeah.
But now, what with the loss of personality and memory, and also this kind of, will my soul be reforged or will I be stuck forever in a statue? Which remind me a little bit of Ghostbusters and their sort of chamber where they put all the ghosts.
Yes, yeah.
Especially with that woman with the Hoover, the soul trap chamber thing.
One of the things it does talk about is how the actual Stormcast aren't fully informed about the process, though.
Well, you wouldn't be, would you? Because they aren't.
They don't want to worry them too much.
Well, it's not so much that. You've got to think where the souls came from originally. There wasn't some dude where Sigmar turned up and went, "Excuse me, I'm considering taking your soul. These are the options. Please read all the small print." He just goes boom and takes them.
Well, yeah, that's a new thing as well, isn't it? That they've sort of added in over the last couple of years. You mentioned it before about how it takes it sometimes takes it when they're alive. But one of the things I like about Sigmar is that he's very human. Like, it talks about him being devastated by this whole process and, like, the fact that it's not perfect. It really upsets him. But it's something that he's willing to do to drive back the evil because there is no other option. And I like that. But then I would like that because I'm a sook, so a god with a conscience. But yeah, really loving it. It's kind of got me excited about doing my Order army again. Because I've got so much Warhammer Fantasy Battle that was never painted, never done. And now I'm looking at going back and doing all the box sets. I do not really want to go back and paint 20 High Elf Spearmen and them not be usable nowadays.
Yeah.
I'm quite happy for them to not be perfect, but I'm not, with my second edition 40k box, for example, I were going to paint them as a second edition 40k army. Apart from maybe the orcs, I might do a little bit more modern stuff on, but the fantasy ones particularly, I'm going to do very much in the style of that second edition. But for the fourth edition, High Elf versus Goblin army, I'm going to be painting the High Elves so that they are in my current style, on round basis, so I can use them. Because for me, it's all very symbolic. I really struggled getting an army done for Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I've done 3 now for Age of Sigmar. That says everything. I've never had a painted fantasy army, and now I have 3 because it's excited me that much.
Yeah.
And I want, if it was me, if I had all those models painted, I would seriously be considering going back and rebasing them anyway. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do them on round bases because I want to be able to use them. But I've been thinking about how to tie them all together. So kit bashing the human kits and the Bretonnian kits, the Empire kits all together. Because I wanted to make a city, and I've described this before, where people would come to try and escape the Age of Chaos. As it happens, reading the books, the Age of Chaos is 7 centuries long, so not an easy thing to survive as a city. But what I was thinking more of is that as the light that there were places that survived, wasn't it? A little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure. So we were talking about this again before we recorded, and anyone that thinks we only ever talk when we're recording is shocked at this point, because we've mentioned it a few times that we actually talk before we record. In
fact, very frustratingly, we basically record the podcast before we record the podcast.
Yeah, well, it almost implies that we plan what we're doing, but that's a crazy and dark rumor. So yeah, what we were saying was it's quite clever in a way, because when we first met Sigmar and the Stormcast, it looked like all of the realms everywhere was all crushed and under the foot of chaos, because that's actually how it would have appeared to Sigmar and his Stormcast going out for the first time. But as the story has progressed and the Stormcast have gone to places and kicked butt and captured gates, they found little enclaves or pockets of resistance. The Fire Slayers and the Caradrons and the Sylvaneth are all really good examples of that. And I like that. I like that sort of progression. I think it's cool.
In that hunt for Nagash, there's that city of humans that give the blood tithe to those vampires that saved them from chaos, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they've been doing it for centuries. And it turns out that the vampires are proper degenerates because they've been starved of blood for so long. But that was quite a cool little bit. But anyway, the idea being is that this enclave survived in a very small way somehow, and then when the forces of Sigmar came back, they were kind of recovered, or their morale was boosted, and they started to sort of fight back themselves a little bit and created a little pocket, and then people started to flock to them, and then a leader emerged, and it became like a state in its own right, and then the Stormcast came at a pivotal moment when it looked like they were about to get crushed, and saved them, and then created a city out of that. And they've they work together very closely now. But what I'd like to do is have it so that the army is almost a bit like an army of refugees. So I want to have a war queen, which I've decided is going to use the Karl Franz model, and then do some very subtle work to convert the rider. So if anyone's got an idea for a plastic female head with long flowing hair that would work, I'm all ears. I'm thinking it could elf or human. I'm not really particularly fussed. And have her as like leading like a chamber of knights who form like the core of the city-state, who I can then make up of Bretonnian knights and Reichland knights on foot and all sorts of different knights with the same colour scheme, symbolising that they've come from different places, but then joined her kind of order. And they form like the core guard. And then around them, different sorts of styles of foot troops, all wearing her colours, or the state's colours, but from different sort of places where they're they've ended up as regiments within the guard of the place, and it allows you to sort of have a diversity of design styles. So from Empire State Troops to Bretonnian men-at-arms, that kind of stuff, without without compromising on the overall feel of it. That was my idea, and I'm getting preposterously excited about that.
Sounds good to me.
Lots of painting for that, though.
Yeah, loads. And shoes.
And shoes, yes.
You got a model on the shoes?
Yes, I do.
On the State Troops?
Yep. The State Troops will take a lot of work, because I just don't like them. I don't.
I personally preferred the version before.
I did absolutely love the version before.
And actually, although this obviously is not necessarily the answer for you, because you're looking up the models you've got and making them fit, Foundry Miniatures.
Oh, yeah.
Make some... What were they called? Is it Landschneck? What is pronunciation shocking? But anyway, they do some models that really fit that theme, that look, including pikemen, which they should always have had in the Empire Army. But anyway, I reminisce.
Yeah.
That world is dead.
Yeah. I'm actually really excited that there will be at some point a human Age of Sigmar release.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll really start to see some cool stuff, I think. That will really, for me, tie it down.
Yeah.
Like, blow the cobwebs off of all the old stuff and have these... Yeah, love it.
It'll
really
be great.
About that. What we were going to do now, and I think, because sometimes it's as much as we get excited about it, and, we do a bit of painting and modelling, and we know a bit about the rules, enough to play the game, what we're really not is able to go down into yet. I mean, hopefully in the future we'll be able to spend the time reading the books to really get to the grips of the meta and that. But we do know a guy who does. And we would like to have a chat with him about the New Age of Sigmar and his thoughts.
Yeah, it's nice to get another perspective.
It is.
Unfortunately, it's going to be Dan Wosley's. But these things happen. No. I've wanted to get Dan kindly joined us when we went up to Warhammer Fest. I've wanted to get Dan on to talk about Age of Sigmar for some time. Dan has always played Wood Elves or Wanderers. So he's in the Wanderers group. So yeah, I'm gonna be recording the interview and dropping it in right here seamlessly. Okay, listeners, so we have seamlessly arrived at the interview with the mighty Dan Wosley. Hello, Dan.
Hello, thank you for having me back.
Dan has been needing a segment of his own for some time, so it's nice to have him here. So I've cracked open the genuine Diet Coke, which is quite an achievement right now, but it had to be done. And Dan is going to kindly talk us through kind of where he started out with fantasy, way back in the day, as it were, and journey into his journey into Age of Sigmar, and what he thinks about the latest release and some of the stuff that's out there being played at the moment. So, Dan, when did you actually start? Because it was a little bit, I think when I met you, you were already playing Warhammer. But that was a long time ago.
I don't know if I can remember a time that we weren't playing Warhammer together, to be honest, but I did start in the year 2000, I think, roundabout.
Yeah, that would have been similar.
At Ravening Hordes. And that was at the time when I think my first box might have been a Wood Elf Archer and a High Elf Spearman box combined. They used to come together.
Right.
And I had the idea that I wanted to collect High Elves, but then a mutual friend of ours, Wayne, wanted to get rid of his Wood Elves. And then I just fell in love with
then it began.
Yeah, and then it began. And 18 years later, I am still collecting and painting Blade Guard.
Which, yeah, not quite the same models, but not far off.
No, not far off.
But you are sat proudly in your Wanderers t-shirt.
Yeah, I am. I am a very proud Wanderer. There's quite a good few of us on the Facebook group now, actually. We're just creeping up to 800 members.
Yeah, I noticed the other day. That's good.
So yeah, so I've been playing all that time. So in that time, I played end of 5th, and then into 6th, 7th, and 8th edition.
Yeah.
Wood Elves all the way through, and I had a bit of a stint at Lizardmen.
Yes.
And then Age of Sigmar dropped. and we all got very excited. And then I got less excited and put all my models on eBay. And then I got more excited to do a sort of mixed army, because at that point in Age of Sigmar, you could just collect and take anything you wanted. There wasn't any fixed faction or alliance.
I seem to remember our first attempt at Age of Sigmar in my house, just set up, and I got some high elves, and it was before, so this was like a year before General's Handbook. All there was War Scrolls and the 4 pages, and they'd put it out early, so we didn't have the box set or anything. And I got my high elves, and you got your wood elves. It was just ridiculous. I lost. But it was absurd. I remember it being absurd. And then I put the picture up the other day of us at midnight.
Yeah.
With the box set there from the beginning. But yeah, you were saying that you built that big mixed army.
Yeah, so I had Bretonnians, which turned out to be a bad move. Allied with ogres painted in the same heraldry, which turned out to be a bad move. And a giant. And then I wanted some squigs, but I didn't want them to look like squigs. Do you remember I bought little pigs?
You bought pigs, didn't
and
you? And one of them had like wheels, and that was ridiculous.
Yeah, and then I had like Bretonnian like peasants prodding the pigs along to be the squigs in my big like.
At least you totally engaged with this idea that you could have anything you wanted at the time.
And I did that in reaction to there not being like a core rulebook, and I could just do whatever I wanted. I could turn up, I could have fun. And it seemed to me like that was a really fun army. And then we shifted towards General's Handbook, which is kind of what I had wanted all along. But it annoyed me that it had come at a time, even though it was all I ever wanted, it came at a time where I'd sold all my competitive armies and built something absolutely ridiculous. And then it was at that point that I decided that I would go back to Wood Elves, or now Wanderers, and basically rebought the army that I'd put on eBay some time before.
Well, at least you hadn't burnt it.
Yeah, at least I hadn't, but I mean, what a thing to do, eh?
Yeah.
So I've been playing Wanderers all through the first General's Handbook and now into the second General's Handbook. And I do want to sort of vary what I play a bit. I have been painting a few Star Lizards.
Yeah.
I painted my first
very nice as well.
My first unit of Skinks. And I'm looking to do a Thunderquake Star Host, which is all of the monsters.
Yeah.
And sneak a Croak in there because he's been ripping up. He can cast his... So before there was a rule of 1, wasn't there, where he could only cast a spell 1 time. But now he can cast it 3 times. And he's been ripping up the scene lately. I know Dan from AOS Short's been outlining with his Sylvaneth and stuff, and keeping an eye on stuff like that. So that's my aim with them. But in the meantime, I'm not taking my eye off my Wanderers. There are things I still want to do with my Wanderers. And they're the only sort of completed army that I have, so I'll still play with them.
Yeah, they look nice though, and you've built yourself some objectives. You've gone with the cool leaf scatter on the bases.
I've gone pretty much as far as you can go, I think.
Yeah, just eked it out every time. It's like, I'll just put a bit more on the base.
It was nice though, it was really satisfying when I went to Throne of Skulls and I got a few nominations for Best Army, because in our hobby group we've got Ben the Base, who's entering Golden Demon, and like compared to him, I sort of bring my models and put them on the table next to his, and I just feel like, oh well, at least I know how to play the game.
Well, yeah, but you've got a painted army, which we've spoken about loads of times on here, is awesome. And what I like is like, because you've got that consistent basing scheme all the way across, even though some of the units are different colours, that's nice because it makes it clear what's going on, which is important when you're playing the game for the game. Mm. But the consistent basing scheme pulls it all together.
Thank you.
So it is good. Actually, Drika's not painted yet, is she?
She's sort of, well, halfway.
You've been a bit put off since the Celestant Prime boshed her.
Mate, that Celestant Prime, I've seen Celestant Primes fall down to like stiff breezes before, and that guy just stood up to the combined shooting of all of my army and a named character in combat who can re-roll hits.
Who shall survive the entire shooting of your army, Dan?
Only the faithful.
Only the faithful. So obviously AOS2's been with us for, a couple of months now, is it? I lose track. So what for you has been the biggest changes over AOS 1?
Magic, and much more than I thought it would. So initially I looked at Magic and I looked at the spells and I thought, okay, so they've nerfed the 2 sort of signature spells that everybody can take, which I thought was fine. In my Wanderer's Army, I did have a little bit of a buff going on with Mystic Shield and Sisters of the Thorn and the Frost Phoenix, where he can buff his save every time a spell is cast, and that spell buffs it anyway, so he becomes sort of like 2+. And then the Sisters of the Thorn mean that you can bounce back mortal wounds on a 6 or more to your save, and then when that's increased, that can sort of go up to sort of 4+ or 3+ even, depending on what you've done. But the thing is, although that little combination was nice for me, that spell, Mystic Shield, was just a 1+. Like, no one would cast their own spells. So I thought that was really nice that it opened up Magic to be used, and then they brought in the new spells, the Ender spells that sort of deal mortal wounds and look really great on the table. I can remember at Warhammer Fest, I was having a conversation with some of the guys who are entering Throne of Skulls and just talking about how thematic Age of Sigmar 2 is going to be, with the spells being represented as models, and then every faction having their own scenery pieces. Like, it would look visually a much better game. I didn't really realise the implications for the rules of how insane Magic is going to get. So I've been looking at, on my Twitter feed, I follow Ginger Buddha, who is a guy who is a tournament organiser in America. And he has just hosted Midwest Meltdown.
Right.
And in that tournament, there was some Death Armies. And Nagash, his signature spell, Hand of Dust.
Yeah, I saw.
Is pick a unit within 3 inches of Nagash, and then you put a dice in one hand concealed, and hold up both hands like as fists. And your opponent picks a hand, and if they pick the empty hand, the model within 3 inches that you've chosen is slain outright.
Oh my goodness.
If you can imagine that coupled with the Umbral Spell Portal to increase its range to almost anywhere on the table. Relian, who I also follow on Twitter, tweeted yesterday, "Here is my Hand of Dust count for the event. Game 1, a king on a Terrorgeist. Game 2, Frostlord on Stonehorn. Game 3, Great Unclean One. Game 4, Nagash. Game 5, Nagash."
Oh my goodness. Is it a 1 use per game thing?
No, I don't think it is.
Right, okay.
Because it's
Mind
just,
you would just go for the biggest.
It's just within 3 inches of him.
That's insane.
So it is kind of limited. So you would think, okay, so that just means in combat, I won't put my biggest thing against Nagash. I'll try and shoot him or spell him or spam him units that can sort of, like your, Khorne demons that can do mortal wounds. And then if he does that spell, he's only going to have just one model. But now with the spell portal, he is insane.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been FAQ'd as of yet that I saw today in the FAQs.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I forgot to mention that we're recording this and the FAQs have come out today.
The other thing is Croak
Yeah.
in his Magic. So, sat up on a Balewind Vortex, and they've FAQ'd it that he can be sat up on a Balewind Vortex. And then again, with a spell portal, his spell is, I think, models within 3d6 range all take d3 mortal wounds, and more if you're a demon or chaos.
Yeah.
And
Which I think is outrageous, personally.
Of course you
It's
would.
just picking on the little guy.
the little guy, the massive bloodthirst that's leading over him, that actually were the ones that killed him in the old world. It was Khorne.
Yeah.
Khorne demons killed him in the old world. So he can still cast his spell 3 times in a phase, but now the FAQ for the Umbral Spell Portal is that if you cast a spell through it, then it's done. You just cast it that one time through there. So the other times that he tries to cast it, it won't go through the portal. Not to say there's not ways to buff it. The Astrolith Bearer can add 8 inches to that, and the Balewind Vortex can add more range to that. Again, I forget exactly how many.
Is it 6 now?
It might be. So you can add 4, so you can make it 24-inch range then.
Yeah.
Which is still nasty, but it has been, and it's a little bit more difficult to cast. But initially, when the edition came out, and I started looking at what Magic had been doing in the tournaments, I was just like, okay, wow, this is insane. So there are some really cheeky combos.
I think you'll see that a bit more with the FAQs, like what you just said, changing the wording to massively change. So I was looking today, and the Slaughter Incarnate ability for the Aspiring Deathbringer has changed from giving +1 attack to a unit within 8 to giving +1 attack to a unit wholly within 10.
Mm.
And I was like, dang! Because, I think it's quite thematic to have a massive T shape going on across the board of all my models.
That's something I really like about AOS 2, though. That's something that they obviously really considered is, how do we make it, again, more thematic, like I was saying, so we don't have just... We used to call it your conga line, didn't we?
Yeah.
Where you just have one model, like, after another, just like in a conga line going up the battlefield, which isn't very Khornate, or in your case, I should say, isn't very Cornish.
Oh, you wanted to throw that in, didn't you? You couldn't believe I hadn't said that.
So it wasn't very Cornish of you
No.
to play that way. And they've obviously thought about it with the way that now if you break your coherency, half your units die, which is another thing that's come out, I guess, in the meta, is Star Drakes obviously weren't bent enough, because now they, when they do their Reign of Stars, they pick the models that die.
Oh, so they can cut units in half.
Yeah, so if you're daisy chaining and you're playing against one of them, they're going to I'll take that model in the middle, and you choose which half your unit is going to die.
Right, yeah.
So there are a few things, but I think that's good for the game, to be honest.
Mm.
I don't want to see daisy chains. I want to see mass melees, and I wanted the game tightened up and a bit slicker. One of the things in one of the events that I went to last year is there was a guy on an objective, and I went in and attacked him, and the combo that we talked about earlier with my Frost Phoenix meant that I caused mortal wounds back to him in the combat phase. Under General's Handbook 1, it was ruled that you didn't have to attack.
Mm-hmm.
So we just both stayed there, but he had more models. And he held the objective, which was exactly the right thing for him to do in the game.
Yeah.
But it just didn't feel like we were playing a game. It felt like we just ran our models up to each other.
Yeah.
And then we stayed there for however many turns. So I think the game is slicker. I think things die quicker, things always die quickly in Age of Sigmar. That's normal. And sort of to compensate for that, now you can just, if stuff dies, you just bring on more demons.
Yeah. Yeah, just summon everything back. So what do you think of the summoning mechanic?
I really like it. Really like it. The thing about Age of Sigmar that I love compared to playing all those different editions of fantasy is how dynamic and changeable games are,
Mm-hmm.
and how much you have to look for and prepare for. And people say things like, oh, the double turn is broken. But I don't think that it is. I think you just have to prepare, and you have to think, and you have to be thinking 2 turns ahead. And then also you have to be thinking what's in range of your units that can summon units, and where can they potentially go. And you have to just think about board control a lot more, which is why in my Wanderers list I've chucked in some Aether Wings, and I've put in some Shackles and a spell to try and sort of get a little bit
That
more
was
board
funny when
control.
we played, wasn't it? Because you put them in the middle, and then basically the game happened in this big circle around the shackles, so that nobody went near them.
Yeah, which it was interesting to see that, actually, because I didn't really know how they would work, but it was funny what a deterrent they are, because you just do not want to get bogged down.
No. Well, no, you don't want to be caught out of, not able to do what you want to do, especially with an elite, because I was using Stormcast in that example. If one unit is undone by the shackles, that's a massive chunk of the army.
Oh, well, if your Retributors are at half movement, was that bringing down to movement 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just
Awesome.
It's alright, though, because you had did you have the Paladins, are they called?
Yeah, with the long sticks.
Yeah, and they've got like a reach 20 anyway. It's stupid. They just biff you from the other side of the table.
Yeah.
Doesn't
In the
matter.
eye. Yeah.
So that's happened, which I've really been pleased about. The FAQ has been good. There's been a few things ironed out. Goblins have been, or grots, I should say, have been ironed out.
Oh yeah, so we were talking about this beforehand, weren't we? So what was it they were able to do?
So the Grot Shaman's ability is that any wound of a 6 or more on a unit does double damage.
Right.
But now there's no limit to how many times you can use a command ability on a unit. So if you rocked up with 20 Grots and a Goblin Shaman, I was just trying to do the calculations, and you had 30. So say you had 30 Grots and a Goblin Shaman, and you had 33 command points left, which is, you can do, I think, if you just take the minimum. You would do, if you wounded with all of your attacks, and they all did double damage, so 30 times 2, then to the power of 33 command points, you would do 257,698,037,760 wounds worth of damage
Right.
from your unit of 30.
I see. That's crazy. It's only going to kill one thing.
I think
It's going to be very dead.
Yeah. The guy from I forget his name now, from the Pro Painter podcast, who you talk about a lot on this podcast. Matt, he posted his Grot army, which was a Grot, and he was just like, potential damage output, many billion. So that has been changed now, so that what it doesn't do double damage, it does a mortal wound, and it specifies that it can only be used on one unit.
It'd be a proper Grot bomb, because, although obviously, it's not going to work that way, but Matt was working on Grots in, like, Caradon skyships and things.
Oh,
Love the
that's
idea
cool.
of one just floating over, just throwing one Grot down, and people being like, what?
Well, you could do it though. I mean, I don't know how you roll for fanatics actually, but you could potentially just roll out one fanatic and then just destroy a whole unit.
That's ridiculous.
But that's been FAQ'd now. So there was some ridiculous stuff, but there's always stuff that kind of sneaks past.
Thing is, it doesn't matter how much you playtest something. If you have a group of 30 playtesters, they'll find X number of things. Then you go boom and you put it out to thousands of people, and they're going to find more things, aren't they?
There are still little sort of cheeky tricks that you can do that are left behind. I think there's one with Marathi that you can do still, where her ability is that a unit can shoot again in the hero phase. So essentially you can kind of like attack twice. But if you have a unit of the name escapes me, the snake ladies with the bows.
Melusii, I think.
Yeah.
They're 2 types.
Yeah, if you have those, and then you take like 7 command points spare, you could shoot with them 8 times in the first turn, whereas in a game, they would only shoot 5 times if they lasted all the way to the end, which they probably wouldn't. They're probably looking at 4 rounds of shooting a game. So you've maxed, they're potentially twice as strong as they ought to be in turn 1 before you start. But then you do have to kind of reduce points, and you have to work out, will they kill X amount of points worth of command points that you spent, although I try not to think of Age of Sigmar in that way. I still can't help myself, because in fantasy it was always, is your unit worth its points? Whereas now, it's not points killed, it's points captured.
Yes.
So can it kill enough stuff worth of objectives, I suppose?
That's quite a cool difference, actually. I sometimes think about is how, because when we played Warhammer Fantasy, we almost always just lined up and played.
Mm.
Whereas the objectives part, I mean, what is there now? There's 20 battle plans, I think, for match play at the moment. There's 6 in the book.
6
and then,
in the previous book.
Then there's 6 from the previous book, 6 new ones, 6 in the core book for 18, and then there's 2 in Malign Sorcery.
Mm.
So, and they're all like objectives and moving around. I think that makes a lot of difference for the dynamic thing. But then it would have been hard to do that in fantasy, because you wouldn't have been able to maneuver. That's not to say we didn't love playing 8th edition, although we will never forget me having a bit of a rant about how your army was just shooty and ridiculous. And then we counted it up, and my high elf army had more bows than the army, your army that I was ranting about. And I had to go and calm down.
If you are going to take all of and Seaguard,
they look cool though, and the other spearmen were they had boxing gloves on, and I couldn't.
How many times do I have to listen to you say, I just like the model when it's the brand new, filthiest thing that they have brought out, and you just happen to enjoy the look, the aesthetic of the army.
Well, it's not going to stop.
So, the new Bloodthirster of Khorne that you're building, nothing to do with the command ability? Nothing? Nothing to do with being able to run and charge? Just like the model?
It's my least favourite of the model. I just love the command ability.
Oh, you heard it here first. I'm pleased you finally admitted. Because however many times we played, I was like, oh, Dan's fit. Well, to be fair, when you painted the Celestin Prime, it is a lovely model.
Yeah, he's nice, that model. Very nice. Cool. So, well, with that in mind, I mean, me and you could talk Warhammer, all night, really. But 23 minutes in, that's probably as in-depth as we need to get. So is there anything else that you want to add, or any key pieces of advice you'd like to give the many budding generals who clearly listen to the 2P's for their tactical analysis?
I don't have loads of advice, really, if I'm honest. I was speaking to a chap on the Wanderers group the other day about my approach to list building, and he said that the way he builds lists is he might look at some blogs, or he might read some stuff and kind of get confused because there's contrasting ideas, whereas I kind of have like a twofold approach, where the first one is I'm almost doing a shopping list where I'll be like, do I have mortal wound output? Yeah, I picked up my mortal wound output. And do I have something that's like a bit maneuverable? Yeah, I've got something like that. Do I have something with rend? Yeah. Do I have something with like a bit of a save? Yeah. Okay, right. So I kind of just pick through. But I think the most important thing to do is just pick something that you like and that you enjoy. And then if it doesn't perform how you would have hoped, it's just tweak it along the way. Maybe just substitute something in and out, because as long as the core of it is what you enjoy, then you'll always be happy. I mean, I say that as a Wanderers player.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you've had some long drought periods in the past, and even like now, they're not one of the armies which is receiving a huge amount of support at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen in the future.
But I think if you love your hobby and you love your army and you persevere, you can still perform. I mean, I came third in that tournament that we went to, which I don't think many people would have expected, but I know my army inside out, and I love them, and I play with them all the time.
Yeah.
And I have tweaked them and stuck with them. And I think that helps. So I think, yeah, just stick with something that you really enjoy as a hobbyist, and then just, if it doesn't perform exactly as you want, just have a think about where you can sort of just tweak it and look at allies and things like that. And I think also set your expectations right. So as I'm playing Wanderers, I'm happy with third. If I was playing Stormcast, would I have been happy with third? Maybe not.
That's a good point. Cool. Well, thank you very much. Anyone that wants to hear more awesome Dan thoughts, Wanderers group on Facebook, which we've shouted out before.
9-inch Charge on Twitter.
9-inch Charge on Twitter, there you go. Which actually did happen in a recent game.
I did actually make a 9-inch Charge for once.
Excellent. Cool. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that, guys. And now, back to the Mortal Realms. And there we go. Seamless. So, thanks to Dan, for chatting to me. I've, no doubt had to ply him with pizza by this point. The nice thing about chatting, I mean, I've known Dan for years and years and years and years. And I've played Warhammer Fantasy with Dan for years and years and years and years. And still do, which is really ace. So, he's my regular opponent, for Age of Sigmar. And, it's always great to get his thoughts. So thanks for that. So with that, Ben, is that the Mortal Realms? Are we heading forward into the community?
Oh, I did want to spend a little bit talking about how nice the models were to put together in the new set. And the malign sorcery. So, did I speak about me putting together the malign sorcery?
I didn't know you had put together the malign sorcery, so I don't think you have.
So, the malign sorcery box, let's start with that. There are some absolutely stunning massive models in that box that are an absolute pleasure to put together. The purple sun is like one of those 3D puzzles where you know, you get the 3D puzzles, like jigsaw puzzles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. It's insane. Like, it's so different. But it comes together really nicely. Bit of a pain.
A lot of people have noted that the gaps are quite extreme.
Nah.
No,
honestly,
right, okay.
No. I don't think so. Not at all. You need to really push it. You need to be it's one of those things where if you get it wrong at the start, it'll be buggered for the whole thing. It needs to be, you really need to get all the seams in a ram, because you create a frame and then you build the thing onto the frame. And if you haven't put the piece right fully down onto the frame, then you'll be off for, you'll be struggling from the start. I probably will tidy up some of the seams with some liquid green stuff, because you can't get in and file it because there's the texture on it. But the texture means that you can very easily just mask it by sort of stippling on green stuff. It would look fine. I really think overall it came together nicely, and I'll put some photographs up to show that I'm not just saying stuff. But yeah, they were nice. But the actual box set itself, the particularly the Nighthaunt, went together so well. Really, really nice. Like, it's really easy. The mould lines weren't particularly hard to find. They were hidden a lot of the time. There is a few things that I thought I'd mention. I stole this from Pro Painted. That on the Nighthaunt cloth, you got the seam where you put them together. Even if you file it flat, you can still see a tiny little seam where it was. So I painted it with green stuff, still because it's a tiny little seam. So what I've been doing is painting it with a couple of coats of hard coat, and it gets rid of it perfectly. It's really good. Really nice way of getting rid of that. And it works on the shoulder pads of the Stormcast too.
I heard them talking about that, actually. I was going to try that. Just to show that, I actually do listen.
They have the seam down the middle of the shoulder pads on all the Easy Build Stormcast, which is a bit of a pain, it's got to be said. Particularly the join on the right shoulder pad through Gal Miraz. That is really a bit of a. I was very pleased to find that, or be told that the actual Stormcast models have separate shoulder pads like Space Marines. That made me very happy. Yeah, they all went together really, really nicely. It literally took me half the time to put that box set together as it did Dark Imperium. So, just thought I'd mention that.
Excellent. That's good.
Cool. Now we'll go on to the community. So we shall see you there.
Hail to the community. We are here. We are hailing. I'm just waving at the microphone now, which makes no sense, but there we go. Okay, Ben. So this is where Ben and I like to talk a bit about stuff we've seen in the community that's inspired us, or things we've been to in the community. So the first thing that has massively inspired me is repairing the damage I did to my own collection, which is when I savagely attacked the cool little bag that comes in the Malign Sorcery set. And having heard my tale of woe, the mighty Mark Clough has got in contact and is sending me his that is undamaged. So that is amazing. So he gets a shout out for being awesome.
Yeah, that's really nice of him.
So I'm afraid, well, it is really nice. It is ridiculous that I'm like, I need this bag. But he has come to my aid anyway. So thank you very much, buddy. That is awesome.
It is. Well, we went to Geek Fest. That was awesome. We've already spoken a little bit about that.
Good.
Yeah, that was very nice indeed. And thank you to them for having us.
My favourite bit about Geek Fest, dude, was this really awesome guy, whose name escapes me, which is terrible, but not unusual, who came up and he was like, he must have been about, I think he was in his early 50s, and he was like, he was dressed as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes,
he looked flipping amazing.
Yeah.
He looked really good. And he was like, this is the first time I've ever dressed up. And it's amazing. And I love it. And how excited he was. It was so good. And then he was like, I'm going to go and get my cape. And off he went. Well, not cape, cloak. And he came back with his cloak on and he looked even better. And he was just the nicest dude. And I was just chuffed that, no matter what you do for your day job, being able to step out of that and step into somewhere like Geekfest, which is really welcoming, really fun, and just do what makes you happy.
Yeah.
I think that's ace. That's so good. So good.
Yeah, it was really good, wasn't it? I mean, we made very welcome.
It was brilliant. I mean, I was just blown away by the location and the number of people. There was so much going on, and next year I'd really like to do both days. I really would. It was really good.
Mm.
And set in like the old mining museum as well. I mean, I was fascinated by that. I was wandering around looking at all that stuff. Different people came up and spoke to us, which was nice, and got a chance to try out a board game about Jane Austen,
yes,
which I really liked, and I've played with Harriet a few times as well since, which is very good. Although it's probably more into the wilds, this, but I throw it in here anyway. It's made by Warmaker Games, and but Harriet's put in a rule, because it is basically you've got to make matches. So one player goes, right, my character is going to propose to your character, do you accept or not? But we've got an unofficial rule that if Harriet's character proposes to mine and her character is called Harriet, I better not decline under any circumstance. Whether I'd win the game or not, it is not worth it. That's our unofficial rule. So yeah, Geekfest, very good. Very good.
Should we talk about our shout outs to awesome hobbyists that we'd like to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got two that we'd like to do. The first one is a chap called Toki Paints, Toki Paints. He's on Instagram, as it tends to be the case, at the moment. I find Instagram is a really good way of getting to know painters. His handle is at toki.paints, Toki Paints. And he does a 30k 13th Company Army. And I suppose it's because I'm a Space Wolf player that it really caught my attention, but his Space Wolves are stunning. Absolutely stunning. They're almost all converted. He's done a true scale 30k army using the Primaris box sets. He's got Wolfen in there using the Primaris box. It's just stunning. Absolutely love it. And his facial tattoos, whopping great axes converted. I will be very closely following, or stealing from his style when I do my 30k army, I think. Although I won't be doing true scale models using the Primaris Marines.
That's cool. His stuff is lovely. I mean, what typically happens, because Ben is a bit more proactive than I am, is we come together and then he says, have you seen this person? Have you seen this person? And then I go and look and I'm just like, oh my goodness. So I saw some of this stuff just earlier and it was excellent. Really good. I loved it. It was really nice. There's a guy there with a double-handed axe, charging, sort of Space Wolf. Really good.
And he's really based on Ferrus Manus's body. The Primarch. So, ace. This whole podcast is based on our conversations. So, this whole section literally comes out of, dude, have you seen this painter? And dude, have you seen this event coming up? And we've just recorded it. And that's where it comes from. Because if we think it's interesting for each other, chances are it's interesting for everyone else. Or hopefully. Anyway, the second one, this guy came out of, I caught him because he was given by a company that, a shop that he works closely with, one of the new knights, Castellan. And, it was done in 24 hours and I was absolutely stunned by it. It's, he uses a lot of, excellent airbrushing and weathering techniques to create an overall effect, which is appallingly good for the time.
It's wonderful. It's really, really nice. And also, if you scroll through his stuff and look at some of the other stuff he's done, yeah.
Yeah, his was also one of the night haunts that I stole to show people, a style that I was thinking of doing. So, Yeah, really, really nice. And he is Thomas Coltow, or Coltow Berenston, and it is his handle at Coltow Paintings. It's at COLTAU Painting, all one word. Excellent, excellent painter. So those two guys, and also Martin Payne is the last one, who we've shouted out on Instagram yesterday, actually, which would be last Thursday, and he is a chap who's local to Plymouth, paints very, very nice large-scale models, is what he's got on Instagram. So Knights and Titans, and his work is very, very nice indeed. So his handle, if I could just bring him up quickly, it's a bit difficult to have all these things at your fingertips when you're using just a phone. His handle is at Wacker1664. I don't know whether the 1664 is a reference to the founding date of the Royal Marine Commandos, or is it Kronenberg beer? But
Kronenberg beer.
Both on the same date, and I don't believe that there's a link between those two. I have heard that the Royal Marine Commandos get crates of it sent to them on their anniversary.
That's cool.
Because they share the same founding date. But he's Wacker, WACCA 1664. So well worth a shot. He's got some really nice Knights on there at the moment.
So I'm going to jump in now, because I've got this couple that I want to shout out. So particularly, just want to draw attention really to a couple of the really awesome things that have popped up on our 2P's podcast hobby forum group on Facebook.
Yeah.
So the first guy whose stuff I am flipping loving is Jonathan Hammett, I think it's pronounced. I'm sorry, John, if that's not correct. But your choreograph, mate, is excellent. He's put like a bloodletter head on it.
Yeah, it's very good, isn't it?
And some other horns. And it just looks great, because I think you've said before, the choreograph's a bit weird in that it's hard to work out where its head is.
It's hard to work out what's going on in general.
Well, yes, that is true. So that looks ace. And I really like the fact he's done it in a fleshy tone as well.
Yeah.
It's different. And I always like it's just a bit different. And, yeah, it's great to see that.
His
really
fleshy tone inspired me to do mine in a fleshy tone, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was really impressed by his, yeah.
So, so I really like that. And the other one I have to shout out, my favourite one for a while was from Adam. So Adam Rush put, it happened. I caught up. When's the next episode due? As other podcasts I listen to don't tell me when to get refreshments. Yeah. And then he's put a hashtag dying of thirst.
We haven't actually told people to get refreshments today.
No, I've just talked about the fact that I've got grapes.
Yeah.
Flipping heck. Most of them could be passed out by now. Oh, no. Right. Pause and get the refreshments, guys.
Yeah, and then we'll head into the calendar.
Just before you go, while you're going there, if you haven't already, jump on your phone and join the 2P's Hobby Podcast Hobby Forum, because I'd like you to, basically. But also, there's some really cool stuff shared on there, and the idea is just to generate a platform where people can put things, hopefully to inspire themselves by getting some cool comments, but also to inspire others by pointing out stuff they do. Really grateful, I know there's loads of places on Facebook you can put your pictures, but we're really looking to create, a very safe environment where you can stick up your stuff, get some cool comments, and hopefully inspire some others. So yeah. Please head on there, and I'll pick a couple more for next week, next time we record to shout out as well. But for now, go and get those refreshments, and we'll find the calendar and bring it up. It's like going and getting refreshments break, because I don't want to add another segment.
So,
right.
So let's start
to
with
the calendar. It's like an interval.
This weekend just gone, we will have had Attack by the Denizens Wargaming Club, which is very cool. And let's go over the next 2 weeks. So, big thanks to Curtain Games and Terror Games for getting involved with the calendar and sticking their stuff up. It makes my life a lot easier, so thank you very much for that. So next weekend, or this weekend, because if you're listening to the podcast, it'll be Wednesday, on the 28th is the Throne of Skulls Open at Warhammer World, which is a casual gaming event.
Do you know what? I'm sorry, I have to cut in.
No, you don't have to cut in, do you? That's so unlike you.
Yeah, well, I just have to say how silly, because I was just looking at the calendar, I was like, Ben, you've made a mistake. Attack is this weekend. But of course, this will be released after Attack.
Yes, Dan.
This is why I don't do the calendar.
Well, it's easy to get confused, isn't it? I don't know what day it is half the time. So at Wincanton, in the Memorial Hall, there's a 24-hour board game marathon, which these board game marathons and painting marathons, God, hats off to people for getting involved in them, because they're often for charity, they make a great deal of money, and you do find actually that you are quite productive in the past, the ones I've done. So the X-Wing Store Championship 2018 for Curtain Games is on Saturday the 28th. They won cracking X-Wing tournaments. In fact, they held the regional X-Wing tournament. So, if you're an X-Wing fan, strongly recommend, if there's any tickets left, getting involved with that. On the Sunday at Terra Games is the 5-colour challenge, which I really like the sound of. It's a painting challenge. Love limited palette painting. So, Terra, if you're listening to this, please send us pictures of the winners or entrants for that. Really would love to see that.
Well, we can do a link because they're going to credit the artists and put pictures up on their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Yeah, good.
So that's good.
On the Friday the 3rd, as always, it seems to be, there's Gaslands running at Curtain Games, and Dan, I need to send you the picture of that Gaslands car with the Khorne symbol on the front. That was wicked. That's on Friday. And Peaceful Negotiations is on Sunday the 4th and Saturday the 5th. That's at Bristol Independent Gaming, and that's a 40k tournament. Just pull out some more. Middle-earth Battle Company's campaign at Warhammer World is also on the 4th and 5th, which sounds really cool. They were talking about that at Forge World Open Day. What they've got planned for that, there's going to be they said a book of scenarios that they will have made especially for the event, so it will be stuff that no one's ever played before. And if you're into Middle-earth stuff, that's going to be really cool. And then Last Man Standing Paint-a-thon. It's that time of year, isn't it? Just for crazy Last Man Standing stuff at Terra Games. So if you fancy, giving yourself a migraine, then go and get involved in that.
What on earth would happen if you did 24 hours of painting, mate? You'd be done. All your stuff, all finished.
I was saying to Joe, I reckon if I had 2 months off of work on sabbatical, I'd get caught up. I'd be very tempted to do that. I don't think I could convince anyone to let me do that, but there we go. So there you are. That's the next couple of weeks. Guys, if you have a event, we say this every time, we mean it. Even if you're a Games Workshop store and think that no one would be interested in publishing your events because you're the big company and you can do it yourself, rubbish. We all want to know. We'll get our stuff up there, get your stuff up there. So we've got a calendar that's useful for everybody. Because it is sometimes...
Just prepare yourselves, though, for the hordes that will then descend upon your event if you advertise it via the P's.
Yeah. Awesome. So, is there anything else you want to say about the community at the moment?
It's good.
No, I don't think there's anything else, is there, coming up?
No, I think that's everything for this week. So, shall we go into those wild places?
Of Middle-earth into Mirkwood. Hail, mighty listeners, and welcome to Mirkwood, where there's spiders and guys being pulled by rabbits or hares.
Yes. Does that happen in the book?
That turns into a bear. I don't know. I can't remember it being in the book, but actually that was a pretty cool addition to the film. I'll let them have that. They can stick the giant worm things up there.
They actually, what happened is they were recording The Hobbit next to the studio that was remaking Dune.
Exactly
and
what
worms
happened.
escaped and got into the wrong film.
That's the only explanation. Either that or the guy who wrote it had a tapeworm and it was on his mind at the time.
Okay. So, we are going to talk about Lord of the Rings, or the Middle-earth strategy battle game. So, we've already said we went to the Forge World Open Day, and the first stand as you went in on the left caused lots of excitement because inside was the new boxed game, Pelennor Fields, for the Middle-earth strategy battle game, which was really cool to see.
Yeah.
So,
it was, yeah.
Very much. We got a really good chat. It's great talking to Adam and the guys in the Middle-earth team because they're really clearly passionate about Middle-earth. They care greatly about it, as only, enthusiasts can, and getting it out there. And they've done loads. They've done wonders to get what was a game that pretty much looked like it was dead back and being supported, which is great. And they would say, if they were listening, that, it's as much about us as hobbyists buying the stuff and the excitement that drives that as well. So, really cool. If you're part of that community or thinking about being part of that community, thank you. And let's crack on. In the box, what they've gone for is you've got a brand new Theoden model, on horseback and foot in plastic with, is very nice. And you've got options of having it with or without a helmet. So it's worth saying that's the only new model in the box set. And a big sort of reason for that was because the Middle-earth team is still only small, and the revenue it brings in for the business is still only small. And so it was about getting a boxed game onto shelves. So there was something in front of people that might see it and think, oh, I'll give that a go. But keeping the production cost of that low at this stage, and therefore using miniatures that were or molds and miniatures that were already in place. So some may be a little bit disappointed because you're not seeing a raft of new miniatures. I think it's just important to bear in mind it's all about stepping stones and the journey, as it ever was with Lord of the Rings. And this is just part on that path, and it's really exciting. And the book is wonderful, looks really nice. We weren't actually allowed to look in the book. Lord of the Rings is tied up, or Middle-earth strategy battle game is tied up in all sorts of bits and bobs around the licensing. But you've got the core book, and there's two. There's a Lord of the Rings and there's a Hobbit book coming out that will have all the profiles for all the models in. So with those three books, you'd have everything. Rules wise, I think that's right, unless you recall something different.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but the army list ones are separate from the box set. So in the box set, you will get the rule book and the miniatures and all the other gubbins and
there's a lot
that
in
you get
there
for playing the game.
A lot of miniatures. I think
there is a lot in
on
there.
I'm just trying to remember. The evil side is something like 24 Morannon orcs. There's a troll.
Well, I'll just.
I know, I'm testing my head.
Have a look.
My brain. So. There's a ring wraith on the fell beast.
There is the flying ring wraith. Yeah, you get the troll. At least 24 Morannon orcs. There's a load of them, and the flying ring wraith on the evil, and then you get Rohan on foot, mounted Rohan, an army of the dead, and Theoden for the good side.
We couldn't actually say price, but looking likely to be around £85.
Yeah, he said it's around the current sort of box set offerings. On the cheaper side, didn't he? That was about what you could say. I don't think he was referring particularly to the Titanicus box set because it's not. But I mean the models wise, it's easy to get disappointed, but really the only old stuff in there is the Rohan riders. The Troll's new and a great model. The Ring Wraith is fairly newish. and a great model. And the Army of the Dead were great when they came out, so they haven't lost any. They've aged well. I mean, are people going to want to buy the box set if they've got those models, or not interested in them? Possibly not, but it's exactly what you said it was. It's for having something on the shelf that if you want to get into Lord of the Rings, for those of us that have sold our collections, or those of us that have never played it, it's there. You can pick it up and you can get going straight away. And you can play with everything that's in the box, and it's a lot in there. Like you said, there is a lot in there. Barely fit on the shelf.
Yep. Interestingly, for Lord of the Rings as a development, so Adam has recently accepted a role in the Warhammer community team. I don't know what that role is, but he's and obviously I say this as if I'm the bringer of this news. This has been on the web. So he's going to be handing over the baton, and actually they're asking for applications now for someone to head up the Middle Earth team. So they are replacing his role. So it's not a case of they're scaling back on that. And I think he's leaving having put Middle Earth in a really good place.
That's really sad, actually. I'm quite sad about that. I think
it is a shame, but it is what it is. I mean,
well, in some ways,
he'll take his love of
nice, exactly, onto the community team. Yeah, have him on the community team, spreading the joy for Lord of the Rings. That would be quite useful for the system in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. What's really cool is, and I think is a real sign of the times, is he put that announcement into the Great British Hobbit League.
Yeah.
Which is a Facebook page.
Yeah.
And I think that is just fantastic, because it really shows that they feel that they really feel like the community. It's all they're a community together, I suppose.
Yeah, well, the Great British Hobbit League is responsible for keeping the system alive.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, however you look at it.
Yeah.
So, I think it's exciting times for Lord of the Rings. I'm really excited by it. And there's some things that I'd like to bring out that he spoke about. So first thing is that Battle Companies was future-proofed. So it is completely compatible with the current system, with the new system. In fact, there was some sneak peeks in there as to what was going to come out. So I don't think they fully intended to be in there, like the use of the word Uruk-hai bow, which will be a new thing. When it comes to the game system itself, it's mainly tweaks. There's no massive changes. There are tweaks that some have big implications on the game, but others not so much. They just add to the making more sense. But there's a few things that I really liked that you talked about. Probably my favourite thing was that they're now, the push is to have themed armies. So you will not get penalised for having a soup army, but you will get significant bonuses if you, for example, take a Rohan army. You will get a charge bonus when you're mounted on a horse, which is ridiculous.
It's +1 strength, I think, isn't it?
So
on the charge.
It's going to be definitely worth getting themed armies, and that is so cool. I think that's really.
I love it, mate. That was the thing of all the things he said. That was the thing I really, really liked. Because I really want to do a Rohan army, and I really want to do a Mordor army.
So this box set is for you.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that the only thing with that is it depends, because if someone else within our sort of group would rather do Rohan, I'm fine with that. I'll do Minas Tirith, because Minas Tirith are cool as well. Love the White City. It's a
and there's all those new models coming out for them as well.
Yeah, I was going to say you've got the Knights. Well, yeah, so you've got the new the guy that guards the wall, haven't you?
Yeah, with a big whopping great sword.
Oh, and there's him. That's the gatehouse guy with the whopping great sword. And then if you want to do fiefdoms, the new Knights on Foot, Dolomroth Knights on Foot, are flipping amazing. Available very soon. Couple of rules I like. So apparently, there's been some work done to Magic to try and lessen its impact because it was getting a bit ridiculous. So one of the things was if you roll a 6 when trying to resist a power with a point of will, you not only resist the power, but you retain the point of will.
Yeah.
I think there's some other things as well, but that's the one I particularly remember.
Yeah, I was really excited about that because I've always found playing a good army that you get walloped by magic.
Yeah.
Especially if someone's taken all 9 of the ring race, then you're just in a mess. And Sauron, and Saruman, and a couple of orc shamans. It just gets ridiculous. Yeah, so I suppose the only other thing to do in Into the Wilds, Dan, is Chris has written a lovely little review of the box set, the Dracarys box set, which is we're going to pop on our website. So if you're interested in what we were talking about last week about that, then we'll have that up on.
He even uses the correct terminology, which is time path. I don't even know what I called it, but all sorts of things, but it wasn't that. So yeah, it is the time path. Chris is on Instagram as well as Obvious Player, I think.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so he's kindly done that, so we'll get that up. Do the wizardry to make that appear.
Ace?
I think that's about us, isn't it?
I think it is. I think we're all wound up.
We've probably gone on long enough now.
Yeah.
People need a break now to get over this episode.
It's taken most of my day just to record it.
Yeah. So, as ever, we are on all sorts of places: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Is it at the 2P's podcast, Ben?
It is, Dan. Yes, it is at the 2P's podcast.
Just remembering. Just remembering. And that isn't a funny way to try and get it across. I'm genuinely that bad at remembering stuff. So yeah, on there, please check out, if you are so inclined, the group and get pictures of your stuff on there. We love seeing pictures of what people are working on and hearing about what people are up to.
Mainly because we can steal your ideas.
Mostly because of that. Yep. Or like poor Chris, get you to do reviews for us, or in Dan's case, steal him for interviews. Other than that, I think that's everything, dude.
It is, yeah. It's been nice talking to you.
Well, and as ever, it has been nice talking to you. And not too much chat about Space Wolves this week, which is a lovely change.
Yawn.
Or Khorne, actually, really.
Yeah, in fact, I spoke more about Khorne than you did.
You spoke more about Khorne.
Excellent. So, as ever, if you want to hit us up with some questions, please do that, because we've filled a hobby desk full of answering your guys' questions this week. So, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes, indeed. Bye, guys.
Bye.